Chapter 731. In the drizzle, the huge Airbus A330 swooped down from the sky with an ear-piercing screech, and then landed on the ground. The brakes madly braked, bringing up billowing smoke. Then the first set of brake tires burst and the nose of the plane hit the ground and sparks flew everywhere. Then the second set of brake tires burst and more than half of the fuselage stuck to the ground, continuing to drag out more sparks and crazily throwing out broken fuselage parts. In the camera, the fragmented shell of the plane dragged all the way. Finally, this behemoth finally stopped only a few dozen meters away from the end of the runway. Even because the surveillance camera was shooting from the rear, it gave people the illusion that the plane had already rushed out of the runway. Thick smoke continued to rise from under the plane, and the fire trucks quickly gathered. Before they got close, water columns and fire-extinguishing foam had already been madly sprayed. The ambulance followed closely behind the fire trucks on standby. This scene was like the scene of a disaster movie. Without waiting for the national mouthpiece to explain, the millions of viewers in front of the TV immediately understood that this was really a terrible accident. Wait, just now the national mouthpiece first said it was a forced landing, what miracle, what heroic feat, and then said to thank the hero? Qu'est-ce we all know the usual routine of the official mouthpiece, they can also make a funeral a happy event. Truly shameless to the extreme. It was obviously an accident, but they can forcibly say it was a forced landing. Are they trying to create a model and boast about heroes? Today we people have become smarter, we won't be fooled. But then the special news that reached 10 minutes long made everyone clearly understand one thing. This time it was really not a funeral but a real heroic legend. Next, the news moved the time to before the hijacking. First, it briefly introduced the crew of Flight DL199333 and the flight information. Then the screen showed the cockpit surveillance video provided by Pan Am, the tragic gunfight and the arrogant shouting of the robbers. Then the brave captain fought with all his might and perished together with the criminals. Then the news briefly introduced another accident because the crew was shot, then the plane went into an unmanned state and finally crashed into the sea. No one on board survived. At this time, people finally realized the seriousness of the problem. What happened next completely subverted everyone's outlook on life and the world. Qin Guang appeared in the cockpit. Some viewers knew Qin Guang, and as soon as he appeared they saw his name. Isn't that brother omnipotent? Why is he on this plane? Isn't this too unlucky? The news broadcast on the television was still going on. Qin Guang first used an unimaginable method to find the bomb that the terrorists had hidden in the plane in the cargo hold. This was the first time the crisis was resolved for the plane. But their luck is very bad. At this time the plane is still flying towards the terrorist base, and at this time Mr. Qin has not come into contact with controlling the plane at all. Since there was no other experienced pilot on the plane, he took over the heavy responsibility without hesitation. On the screen was a short video of the purser explaining some equipment to Qin Guang. After that, the plane unfortunately encountered clear air turbulence, which is a very terrifying weather phenomenon. The right wing engine was damaged and it caught fire and exploded, causing a fuel leak. The plane was in a precarious situation. Hey, we don't need you to tell us that it's dangerous. The plane only had 2 engines to begin with. How could one of them not be dangerous? It was still leaking oil. Damn, the plane was flying in the sky and still leaking oil. It was practically exploding on the spot, okay? However, in the face of this sudden change, the Qin Guang on the screen was very calm and very calm. Flying with a single engine was not as impossible as imagined. Through reasonable power distribution and adjusting the tail, the plane could still maintain stability at high speed. A large plane was not as fragile as imagined. However, Qin Guang was even more stable. In the face of this crisis, he did not panic. He still worked very hard to crazily absorb even the slightest bit of aviation knowledge. Even though he was so tired that he was yawning crazily, he still tried his best to persevere. For a person who had never come into contact with aircraft piloting, it was too difficult for him to pilot a large civil aircraft like the Airbus A330. Which only had 1 engine and had to be in full manual mode during an emergency landing. This was not the worst part. When they heard that the plane had to make an emergency landing through thunderstorms because of a lack of fuel, people's mouths opened wide. At this time, how many people remembered that they were watching Challenging the Impossible just now? For the person on DL199333, to survive was to challenge the impossible, okay? But then people saw something even more incredible. Brother all-rounder, who said that he did not know how to fly the plane, suddenly started it. They saw him jump left and right in the captain's seat and the co-pilot's seat. His operating movements were incredibly fast. Those who did not understand aircraft piloting would only feel that his movements in the surveillance video were amazing. Those who understood a little would understand how amazing his performance was at this time. What a terrifying learning ability. One person seemed to be in a hurry to control 3 people, but in fact, every one of his decisions was perfect. The data in the black box had been partially transferred out. The experts interpreted that during the entire process of the emergency landing, he dealt with a total of 198 abnormal information provided by the central monitoring system. But he never made mistakes and he could make the most correct response every time. But this was not the most terrifying thing. What was even more terrifying was that his decision-making time never exceeded 2 seconds. It was as if he did not need to think at all to find the key to the problem, which even the most professional veteran pilots could not do. In addition, he made a total of more than 500 micro-adjustments to the various parameters of the plane throughout the entire process, but he never made a mistake. Every micro-adjustment increased the chance of survival by 1 point. Especially when passing through thunderstorms, his series of dazzling and complicated operations could be called a civil aviation textbook. Alignment of the runway before landing was also a big problem. But when the aircraft's steering performance was impaired, his mysterious precise steering operation of the glider was even more accurate than autopilot. His mysterious forced landing at 154 knots was an unsolved mystery. How did he calculate in his mind and how could he predict everything so accurately? How did he know that he could land at 154 knots at the end of the runway? What was the basis of his calculation? All these signs pointed to one thing. In less than 2 hours, all-rounder Chen Guang evolved from a complete novice to an incredible god-level pilot. The entire news broadcast was 10 minutes long, of which at least 7 minutes were focused on Chen Guang, interpreting his mysterious rapid evolution from all angles. The last scene stopped at the moment when the plane was taxiing on the runway and he shouted, "How can I leave?" No one knew who Chen Guang was talking to at that time, and the news broadcast did not clearly explain. Lastly, let us thank Chen Guang once again. We would like to thank Captain Frank who sacrificed his life to fight with the criminals. We would also like to thank the crew of DL199333, as well as the staff of the Air Traffic Control Center. It is because of your efforts that 300 lives were saved. You are heroes. More detailed reports and press conferences will be broadcast in the next few days. After this news broadcast ended, the screen of The Impossible Challenge reappeared in front of the TV. But although these loyal viewers of The Impossible Challenge were watching the TV and listening to the shouting and roaring of the contestants, the program that they were watching with relish suddenly became dull. Compared to Chen Guang, what these contestants in The Impossible Challenge did was simply child's play. Chen Guang was like this, grinding a gun at the last minute to become a god-level pilot, 1 against 3, turning the tide. This was the impossible challenge. Maybe it was a coincidence or maybe it was the arrangement of fate, but the emergency news about the crash landing of flight DL199333 happened to be broadcast in The Impossible Challenge. Comparing the two, it maximized the effect of this sudden news broadcast. Many people were still thinking about Chen Guang's words. Why did he suddenly shout, "How can I leave," without rhyme or reason? Oh yes, it must be that he was mentally and physically exhausted at that time and he was on the verge of fainting. He was actually talking to himself. He was using his will to overcome himself and surpass his limits. What a great person. So sometimes overinterpretation was a very unpredictable thing. In fact, Chen Guang was talking to Lioli but no one knew. Instead, it made people imagine and analyze things in a different direction, forcing his image to become even greater. Chen Guang was lying in the hotel room watching TV and smacking his lips. As expected of Central TV, their efficiency is really high. It's only been 20 minutes or so and they made it look like a documentary. Actually, I'm not so tired that I'm yawning and forcing myself to study. I'm really asleep. In fact, he complained a lot throughout the whole process, which was not suitable for children. However, the relevant staff of Central TV had also received a hint from someone and only kept some of the more positive scenes in the entire news broadcast. Just the old master's ridicule alone was quickly ignored. "Chen Guang, why aren't you asleep yet?" At this moment, Sun Xiaoxuan came in without knocking on the door with a bowl of hot soup. You should rest well. Qin Guang shook his head. What rest? I'm not that weak. By the way, I'll get someone to buy a flight ticket from Jiaodong to Yanjing. I have to leave tonight at the latest. Oh, you're still taking a plane? Do you have to leave in such a hurry? Sun Xiaoxuan was a little scared. Qin Guang saw her like this and smiled. What are you afraid of? We've already survived such a bad situation. Can it be any worse? I really have to leave now. Don't I have to play the piano at the National Museum of Art the day after tomorrow? I can't delay it. I have to go. But someone just came to inform us. They especially wanted me to tell you that they hope you can attend the press conference tomorrow at this hotel. Qin Guang curled his lips. I'm not going. I don't have time to sing praises. I'm busy. You're really not going? Qin Guang nodded resolutely. I won't go even if you beat me to death. My time is precious. 10 minutes later he changed his mind because he heard that this press conference would be broadcast live all over the country and even the world. There was no doubt that it would attract a lot of attention. It would be a pity to waste such a good opportunity to promote himself. The most important thing was that since it was a live broadcast he would definitely be interviewed. He couldn't control his words. Chapter 732. Other than that, what prompted him to change his decision was that he would be able to meet the relevant person in charge of Pan Am at the press conference, as well as Captain Frank's family. Since he had said he would take care of Captain Frank's daughter Elsa, he had to do it. For him, money wasn't a problem. To be able to escape successfully, besides his own hard work, he also had to thank Captain Frank's final desperate struggle. Without him opening the cockpit door, even if he had 1,000 abilities, he wouldn't have been able to use them. That night, a more detailed report on the forced landing came out. This time, Central TV Department 1 simply did a half-hour-long special report. The investigation into the cause of the accident and the hijackers was still in progress and had yet to reach a conclusion. Therefore, the special report still focused on Qin Guang, but at the same time, it also explained in more detail the bravery and fearlessness of the original flight crew in their fight with the hijackers. However, the impact of this incident on the internet wasn't limited to just Central TV. As early as the first emergency news broadcast in the morning, this incident had gradually become a hot topic on the internet. Whether it was domestically or internationally, the attention paid to the plane accident was already extremely high. Moreover, this accident was mixed with a terrorist attack, a savior hero who had appeared out of nowhere, and other hot topics. Several photos taken by the publicity section chief of Jiaodao Airport appeared on the internet after receiving permission from the relevant departments. Among them, 3 were the most popular. They were the one of the plane dragging sparks as it rushed forward on the runway, the one of Qin Guang holding Sun Xiaoxuan and standing at the escape exit, and the one of Qin Guang being thrown into the air by the crowd. These 3 photos, whether it was the lighting or the angle of the shot, or even the people and objects in the shot, perfectly matched the metaphysical beauty of photography and were extremely representative. The limelight and craze on the internet soared to the sky. An omnipotent Superman, Qin Guang's name once again shot to the sky. He really was omnipotent. He knew everything. Or rather, even if he didn't know some things before, as long as it was necessary, he could learn and apply it on the spot, and he could do better than anyone else. For example, Qin Guang's own Weibo, under the control of the staff of Tianguang Agency, had reposted the photo report posted by the official Weibo account of Central TV News. Under this Weibo post, in addition to the busybodies and fans who came on a pilgrimage, there were also some teachers and students in the field of aviation. I'm a senior lecturer at Southwest Aviation Academy. I have 20,000 hours of safe flight time. From my professional point of view, I can tell you that what Mr. Qin has done is unprecedented in the history of civil aviation. Aside from the fact that he was a beginner, the A330 was a modern large commercial airliner. Even with a complete automatic control system, it still required at least 2 people to operate it. After switching to manual mode, it was almost impossible to be as precise as Mr. Chen's. I admire him very much. I can even say that as a retired civil aviation pilot and a 60-year-old astronaut, I worship him. That's Professor He upstairs. I'm a level 17 freshman, and I also think that brother all-rounder is simply too strong. I am a retired fighter pilot and I completely agree with Professor He. Mr. Chen's flying skills and piloting skills are outstanding even on a fighter jet. I want to become a pilot. Recently, I no longer worship Brother Chun but Brother Guang. All-rounder Chin Guang is invincible. I told you a long time ago that Brother All-rounder is invincible. Anyway, I'm his die-hard fan. Unlike previous Weibo posts, this time, Chin Guang's Weibo post was full of positive comments. There was not a single negative comment. It couldn't be helped. At least there was no negative comment on this matter. If they continued to criticize him at this time, they would be going against everyone and against morality. This incident also shut up the people who criticized him a few days ago about the movie incident. On the other hand, the new fans attracted by the arm wrestling competition were overjoyed. A new question gradually appeared in everyone's mind. Was there anything in this world that Brother All-rounder couldn't do? Many of the negative comments and haters who were attracted by the movie also began to panic. Could it be that the rumors were wrong? That Brother All-rounder was actually a good actor? That couldn't be, right? Wasn't that too much of a scam? A lot of people touched their faces nervously. They had an ominous feeling. When Women was released, would their faces be slapped swollen by him from a distance? Perhaps it was because Chin Guang had attracted too much attention on the internet and in the public eye recently. But no matter what, Central TV Department 1's special news had achieved an unprecedented high viewership rating in recent years. It was even higher than the viewership ratings for the season finale of Empresses in the Palace and Langya list, which had been very popular recently. Many people even put down their games and waited in front of the TV at 9:30 p.m. just to watch this special report. They saw another epic forced landing, an unprecedented hero in the history of aviation. Of course, the entire report was not full of highlights. There were still some negatives. Perhaps it was a mistake by the Central TV staff. Or perhaps they deliberately wanted to highlight Chin Guang's bravery and calmness, but they cut out the part where he sang at the last moment. Well, thank God there were still some things that this guy didn't know. Judging from his out-of-tune and foreign singing voice, there was no doubt that he was the singer of souls, a Naga siren from hell. Fortunately, if he was also a singing god, then the world would be too unfair. You're so cute. Hearing the terrible singing coming from the TV, Sun Xiaoxuan, who was sitting with Chin Guang in front of the TV, covered his mouth and laughed. Damn, how could I sing at that time? I must have been controlled by some evil force. I have no memory of it at all. Chin Guang also blushed. This leader of the TV station was really poisonous. Wasn't he smearing his great image? Fortunately, the TV station couldn't post comments, or else they would be flooding over. We're on the same side, please don't sing. Brother All-rounder, if you don't sing we can still be friends. Soul singer All-rounder, singing doesn't need money, only life. I'll give you Buddha jumps over the wall, please don't sing. At 10 o'clock the next morning in the most luxurious hotel in Jiaodong City, hundreds of reporters from all over the world gathered together. Although the investigation of the plane accident could not produce too many results in just one day, they could directly interview the godlike Captain Chin Guang at this press conference, which still made all the reporters scramble. As for other ordinary passengers, they were questioned by the accident investigation team one after another yesterday, but these passengers were not very clear about the situation before and after the accident. Only the first-class passengers knew that there had been a fierce exchange of fire in the cockpit before the hijacking, and then some passengers helped the flight attendants clean up the mess. The information that the accident investigation team could learn from the ordinary passengers was more or less the same. As for the compensation for the accident, this was something that the airline needed to deal with slowly afterward. After all, it was impossible for the airline to bear no responsibility for letting terrorists sneak into the crew and bring weapons onto the plane. In other words, if the plane had not been diverted after being hijacked, the plane would not have encountered the clear air turbulence that caused damage to the right wing engine, and naturally the subsequent series of events would not have happened. At 10 o'clock the next morning the press conference was held on time. The entire press conference first took about an hour to explain the latest progress of the accident investigation. The experts had further investigated the black box and the plane's monitoring equipment and reached the latest conclusions. In fact, the content was similar to last night's special report, but this time it was spoken by a person, and the matter was explained more comprehensively. Chin Guang's performance yesterday, which had even dazzled the eyes of professional pilots, was now being interpreted in more ways. On the surface, this was just a forced landing completed by manual operation. All of Qin Guang's operations in this process were open and transparent, and the electronic equipment accurately recorded his every move. Machines would not lie, would not deceive people, and would not forget anything that should not be forgotten. Therefore, although ordinary people could not see Qin Guang's series of operations, it was completely open and important reference information in the aviation industry. Humans also used this method to work together to push forward aviation safety step by step. In just one day, his operation records had appeared in front of almost all relevant technical personnel and experts who were interested in participating in aviation safety construction around the world. More and more people were involved in interpreting his operation records, trying to crack his methods, and even trying to sort out new aviation operating standards from his manual operation records and compile them into manuals. But the incredible happened. People could not understand his operation. Saving the air disaster was not accomplished overnight, but it was a series of countless operations that were linked together. Any mistake in the middle, any parameter adjustment that was too large or too small, could lead to irreversible consequences. In particular, there were multiple factors such as operating with a single engine, oil leakage, passing through thunderstorms, and operating alone, which made it even more dangerous. But Qin Guang did it. At first, the members of the Aviation Association could hardly believe that he had no piloting experience, but a lot of Qin Guang's information was open to the public, and they did not need to investigate too much to know that he had never touched the control panel of an aircraft. The most frightening thing was that he was not a blind cat running into a dead mouse. Every step of his operation seemed to be extremely rushed and random, but when these steps and links were combined, the final result was a near-perfect forced landing. The landing seemed thrilling, but the result seemed to be perfect. He even said in advance that he would stop at 2,950 meters and that 6 tires would explode. This was too monstrous. It was difficult to understand, but he had already become an established fact. Therefore, his dazzling series of random presses, whether they did not understand or doubted it, must have been reasonable in his heart. Aviation safety was only judged by the result. He succeeded, so his operation must have been reasonable, and it could be said to be correct in a sense, and it should also have reference value. But we can't understand it. Breaking down to every step, we all understand. It was nothing more than adjusting the amplitude of the tail, increasing the air pressure, increasing or decreasing the power output, opening or closing the flaps, increasing the hydraulic pressure, and other basic operations. But how could these small operations, when linked together, form the most perfect result? The experts and scholars could not understand, and even the most experienced pilots could not understand. His series of operations was simply like a bottomless pit. The more people tried to decipher it, the more unfathomable they felt, as if every step of his was full of deep meaning. How did he do it? What was the basis for his actions? How did he judge? One question after another appeared in the minds of all the technicians. There were only 2 possibilities. Either he was really a person blessed by the gods with incredible luck and he could save the plane by messing around. Either that or his flying skills had already surpassed everyone's knowledge and reached a whole new level. How they wanted to stand in front of him and ask him personally, how did he do it? Those who were able to arrive in time today sat in the relatively front seats of the press conference, as well as those from China's domestic airlines. Although many leaders had told them in advance not to ask too complicated questions about Qin Guang, they had to help maintain his image. But these experts and technicians still felt uncomfortable. Why was the explanation of the accident not over yet? Why hadn't Qin Guang come out yet? We are so anxious. The reporters were actually in a similar state of mind. They could listen to the explanation of the accident at any time, but the person they wanted to interview the most was Qin Guang. Hurry up and let him come out. Those who were watching the live broadcast in front of the TV were thinking the same thing. No matter how urgent the situation was, it was still safe and sound. The dangerous situation they were talking about sounded scary, but we didn't really understand it. We just wanted to see Qin Guang. Finally, the host of the press conference stood on the stage again and said with a smile, "Seeing that everyone seems to be impatient, I won't waste everyone's time. Next we will directly invite our hero, Qin Guang." The applause was thunderous. Whether it was the reporters or the technicians, they all clapped until their palms turned red. Qin Guang, who looked quite energetic after being pressed down on the chair by Sun Xiaoxuan, was now standing backstage. "When you go up later, don't be nervous. No, don't even think about whether you are nervous or not. Just smile. Someone asks you a question you don't understand, just play dumb. If you really can't answer, just say that you have no comment. Sun Xiaoxuan wasn't qualified to go up, but Qin Guang was going up. She was even more nervous than Qin Guang. She said she was telling him what to pay attention to, but in fact her voice was trembling. Qin Guang was amused by her silly and cute look. He patted her head and said, "What are you thinking about? This is just a small scene." He smiled and stepped out of the backstage. The applause outside was even more enthusiastic. "Mr. Qin, please say a few words to everyone," the host said as he handed the microphone to Qin Guang. He took the microphone and coughed twice. Then the audience gradually quieted down. Qin Guang raised his head and looked straight at the camera. There wasn't a smile on his face. He knew that there were at least millions of eyes watching him from all over the world. Chapter 733. In fact, he had wanted to show off, but he had just met Frank's family backstage. Elsa was a fat girl in high school in the United States. She and her family had only arrived less than an hour ago. They didn't even have time to look at Captain Frank's body before they were pulled over by the vice president of Pan Am Airlines, who claimed that it was a positive publicity. Her mother was a typical American woman. She was a little fat, but she was also very strong. She had been holding Elsa, who was crying, and patting her head to comfort her. Qin Guang had immediately scolded the vice president. "How could you be so unreasonable? They had flown thousands of miles here to take care of their family's funeral arrangements. They hadn't even seen the body yet. Who would be in the mood to sing your praises?" At that time, Qin Guang had donated $100,000 to Frank's wife and daughter. He had entrusted Tang Xiaokai to transfer the money in the United States. The vice president of Pan Am had also asked the driver to send them to the funeral home. Therefore, Qin Guang, who was standing in front of the camera, wasn't very happy. "Hello everyone, I am Qin Guang." Then he forced a smile on his face. There was another round of applause. "Just now the host asked me to say something. I think they wanted me to brag about my contribution to this incident in a heroic tone. But what I want to say is that the real hero isn't me. I just did what I could. The so-called saving people was actually more because I didn't want to die. Looking at the results, I did save everyone's lives. But I can't deny that if there was a parachute in the plane, I would have run away alone. So I really can't bear the title of hero." There was an uproar in the audience. Who would say that about themselves? You should take all the praise that was given to you. How do you want us to go back and write a script? Who would say that they would run away if there was a parachute when they saw that they were already a hero? The audience in front of the TV was even more confused. Why are you being so humble? Even if you say you are not in the mood to talk, don't want to talk, and don't want to talk, you are still a worthy hero. What do you want to say? Qin Guang did not pay attention to the conference room that was getting out of control. Said he continued. "It might sound unbelievable, but it's the truth. Even if I hadn't seen the cockpit of a plane before it happened, it doesn't matter. I'm not a hero, but I'm a genius. I did learn how to fly a plane in 2 hours with the help of the purser and the air traffic control center. I memorized the name of every piece of equipment they mentioned as well as all the key points of operation. Other than that, it's in my head." As he spoke, he pointed at his own head. "I've formed the entire plane into a whole. So, even if they only mentioned it briefly but didn't go into detail, I've completed it myself and created a complete plane in my mind. Maybe some people will think I'm bragging, but I don't care. How can I be so arrogant? How can someone shamelessly call themselves a genius? But that was the truth. I knew I could do it and I really did it. What might be a fantasy to others is a piece of cake to me. That's why I said I'm not a hero. I just did what I could. It was within my capabilities, so it wasn't difficult. I call my ability the meditation learning method. I don't know if others can do it, and I can't describe this mysterious feeling. Maybe it's my personal talent. Yes, that's right. I'm bragging again." After saying that, he forced a smile and spoke in a joking tone. When the reporters heard this, they didn't quite understand how impressive it was. However, the experts and scholars sitting in the front row, as well as the people in the aviation industry watching the live broadcast in front of the TV, were all shocked. Qin Guang answered the questions in their hearts. He really learned it. He couldn't possibly brag about this because it would be too easy to expose it. What a terrifying genius. His meditation learning method was simply nature-defying. I also know that many of the experts here want to ask me how I made many decisions at that time. It's okay. Regarding this matter, regarding the more than 500 operations that you've calculated, I'll write a more detailed explanation in a few days. I won't go into detail today. When the people in the aviation industry heard this, they were a little disappointed, but more than that, they were pleasantly surprised. What I want to talk about today is someone else. The real hero isn't me, it's Captain Frank. If he hadn't died with the criminals and opened the cockpit, I wouldn't have been able to do it even if I had 10,000 skills. We might not have died in the plane crash, but we would have been taken to the terrorist organization's base. Of course, we might still have encountered clear sky turbulence. Who knows? So, the real hero is Captain Frank and the other 2 crew members. I really don't deserve it. Okay, I'm done. After saying that, Qin Guang turned around and was about to leave. Wait, Mr. Qin, please wait. The Pan Am vice president quickly came over. He held another microphone in his hand and said quickly, "It's not over yet." Without waiting for Qin Guang to speak, he immediately took out a box and opened it. Inside was a dazzling golden medal. Mr. Qin, this is the Hero Medal jointly awarded by the International Airline Federation. It is only awarded to heroes who have made significant contributions to the aviation industry. Although you've been modest, there is no doubt that in this accident, you have indeed saved the lives of 300 passengers and staff, as well as the reputation of Pan Am. Therefore, please accept the Hero Medal that represents our highest respect. Under the lens of hundreds of reporters, the Pan Am vice president handed the golden medal to Qin Guang with both hands. He had a very attentive smile on his face. Qin Guang looked at the medal-like thing in front of him. He didn't really want it. What kind of person is this old man? You actually dare to fool me with a gold-plated medal? The Pan Am vice president's hand was a little stiff. Well, Mr. Qin, every holder of the Hero Medal is a lifetime honorary VIP of major airlines in the world. Every year they can enjoy free first-class tickets from major airlines in the alliance for an unlimited number of times. Currently, including you, you are the 9th holder of this medal in the world. The old man's face was still smiling, but his heart was screaming. Brother, hurry up and take it. It's so heavy. The flashbulbs flashed wildly. So dazzling. I'm so embarrassed. Qin Guang's eyes lit up. Free first-class tickets? Unlimited number of times? I can have that. He finally reached out his hand. Thank you, thank you. I don't deserve it, I don't deserve it. Although he said he didn't deserve it, his hands didn't slow down. The moment he took the medal, the camera flashed again. The old man's eyes were as big as a cow's, but he quickly maintained his smile. This photo was likely to be published in Time magazine. He still had to pay attention to his image. Bro, are you poisonous? You keep taking pictures of my eyes. Are you trying to stuff the lens into my nostrils? Finally, the photo was taken. The Pan Am vice president and the person in charge of China went up to say a few words. This time the Pan Am vice president remembered. In front of everyone, he patted his chest and said that he wouldn't mistreat the families of Captain Frank and the other crew members. He also said that Qin Guang had just donated $100,000 backstage. The audience and reporters in front of the TV also applauded. As for Qin Guang's fans, they were even more touched. This was true sentiment. He wasn't a hero, but he was a true hero. When other people donated, they would want the whole world to know. Look at our brother all-rounder. He donated backstage without saying a word and didn't even say anything. If it wasn't for the tactful boss pointing it out, he might have really done a good deed without leaving his name. Such a brother all-rounder, we fans are righteous. Next, it was time for the reporters to interview. Qin Guang's mood improved. After all, the dead were gone and the living couldn't be immersed in sadness. Qin Guang didn't have much of a relationship with Captain Frank. He had done what he needed to do. He donated to ensure the livelihood of his family. $100,000 was enough for Elsa to graduate from university and help him leave his name. Good. He collected his emotions and prepared to give the guys who were interviewing him a surprise. What were your thoughts before the plane landed? The first reporter who rushed up asked a very boring question. A normal person would have answered that it was for responsibility, for the sake of survival, for the sake of 300 lives and so on. But who was he facing? It was the unreasonable Master Guang. He rolled his eyes. What was I thinking? I had no thoughts. My mind was completely blank. Have you heard of meditation? Epiphany? It was such a magical state. My whole body was empty and countless numbers flashed through my mind like lightning. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. It was as though I was wandering in a sea of data. I seemed to have transformed into a calculator just like in the Matrix. Then I raised my hand and grabbed a number. The tail wing rotated by 0.5 degrees. That's right, just like that. I completely turned myself into a machine. That's why I could perform so perfectly, jumping between two positions without making any mistakes. I didn't have any distracting thoughts at all. I even forgot who I was. Qin Guang didn't call this art. This was called the art of saying things to the point. The reporters widened their eyes and couldn't say anything for a long time. Bro, this is a very serious and global press conference. You're telling this story like it's in a fantasy novel. Why aren't you playing by the rules at all? You must be messing with us, right? That wasn't the end. He was worried that his international friends wouldn't understand, and he was also worried that the overseas broadcast would edit out his words. It was also possible that the guy who translated at the same time was scared silly. He switched to English and repeated it himself. You even brought your own translator. The first reporter retreated in defeat and was replaced by the next. Brother all-rounder, how did you do it back then? I still find it hard to believe. Qin Guang shrugged. Don't ask me. I don't know how I did it either. But it wasn't difficult. It really wasn't difficult. It was very easy and casual, like drinking soup. Have you seen my other competition videos? As long as I want to learn something, I can easily learn it to the extreme. If you still don't believe me, you can follow my Weibo when you go back. Search for all-rounder. The first one that pops up with 21 million followers is me. It has all my personal videos. I'm honest with you. Mr. Qin, your Weibo followers are almost 25 million now. Is that so? I haven't really looked at my Weibo recently. I've been too busy. Even if he was beaten to death, he would never admit that he had handed over his Weibo account to someone else. The second reporter also retreated in defeat. The third reporter rushed forward. Mr. Qin, have you ever thought that if the forced landing failed? No, I have never thought about it. In my life dictionary there is no such thing as failure. The third reporter retreated. The fourth. Mr. Qin, in such a critical moment, who are you thinking about? No one. I'm just afraid of death. I don't want to die. I want to live. On the other side, Air China's representative and Pan Am's vice president were also shocked by this guy's unscientific way of answering questions. When other celebrities answered reporters' questions, it was because they didn't want to say anything. They were afraid that they would accidentally step into a trap and get taken out of context, causing trouble. You, on the other hand, can't wait to write a web novel on the spot. It's like telling a story. When reporters interview others, they have to work hard to pick out the words from their words. You really don't need to pick out the words. Every word you say is a scoop. The reporters all said that there was too much information for them to criticize. That today's questions will end here. Mr. Qin is a little tired. Before the departure, Air China's representative received orders from the elders to help Qin Guang establish a heroic image. But you're tearing down your own stage. I'm so tired. So he decided to let the press conference end quickly. Luckily, those experts heard that Qin Guang was going to write a detailed analysis and didn't ask any professional questions. It was just right to end it now. But how could Qin Guang do that? He still had the most important sentence to say. Wait. Let me answer one last question. Qin Guang silently pushed away Air China's representative, who was trying to drag him away, as he tightly held onto the microphone. All right. Then this question will be asked by CCTV's old Qin. Air China's representative personally picked a veteran reporter. This person was famous for his moral values. He would definitely be able to control the situation and not give Qin Guang a chance to perform. Mr. Qin, then, although you are very humble in my heart, you are a hero who turned the tide. We have also seen that you have already achieved extraordinary achievements in many areas. As a role model for today's youth, do you have anything to say to today's youth? Air China's representative secretly gave reporter old Qin a thumbs up. As expected, his moral values were correct. These words were too appropriate. He didn't believe that Qin Guang could still come up with any more tricks. Qin Guang was also stunned. He hesitated for 3 seconds. It was a bit difficult to draw from this question. Or should I just do a super strong twist? Alright, I can only do this? Of course. It's very important. I have a very important piece of advice. It's very precious. Everyone immediately sat up straight. Even the other reporters who were disappointed that they couldn't ask any questions, nervously clenched the recording pens in their hands. My advice to young people is that I welcome everyone to my concert. Tomorrow night at 8, we will meet at Yenjing's National Gallery of Art. If you can't come to support me, please log on to the Tomato channel and broadcast it live. The webcast will be broadcast live on Bamboo and YouTube platforms. Log on to Qin Guang's concert and don't change the channel. Old Qin was dumbfounded. What happened to the advice? I just wanted you to say something inspiring. Why did you advertise yourself? Air China's representative slapped his forehead. He didn't know why, but he wanted to strangle him. As a result, tens of millions of viewers around the world were forcefully ambushed by him in the stiffest and most rigid public advertisement in history. Chapter 734. Thank you everyone for attending today's press conference. The next step of the accident investigation will be continuously updated on the aviation safety website. We welcome everyone's supervision. We will cooperate with the investigation company, Pan Am, and Airbus to produce a complete accident report as soon as possible. Aviation safety is the lifelong pursuit of all of us. We will treat every accident with the most serious and rigorous attitude. Whether it was a successful forced landing or a failed forced landing, it will be a warning bell ringing above our heads. In short, thank you everyone. The China Airlines representative finally couldn't sit still anymore. He snatched the microphone from Qin Guang and spoke like a machine gun. After that, he passed the microphone to the Pan Am vice president and then moved closer to Qin Guang's ear. My grandpa Qin, that's enough, it's really enough. Let's go? Please spare me. How am I going to explain this to the higher-ups when I get back? Explain? Explain what? Qin Guang didn't continue making a fuss. His goal had been achieved. Looking at his performance, it was already past 1 in the afternoon. After eating, he could catch a 2 o'clock flight to Yenjing. The higher-ups said that this time, you've done a great service, a real great service. They want me to cooperate with you and make your image as positive as possible. You're like this, I really feel like I can't do anything. The China Airlines representative ultimately sold out the elders. Qin Guang smiled and patted the uncle's shoulder with more maturity. No. I never wanted to deliberately create a positive image. How I am, I let others see me as I am. Wearing a mask and acting, doing one thing in front of others and another behind others, this kind of life is too tiring. Also, the netizens these days are really smart. What people do, the heavens are watching. Whether or not my image is positive, everyone has their own opinion. Blindly packaging will only backfire. If you want me to be like those leaders and say dignified words, it's not that I can't but that I don't want to. Don't worry, there won't be any problems with what I said today. After Qin Guang finished speaking, he patted the man's shoulder again and went backstage to the airport with Sun Xiaoxuan. The China Airlines representative stood there in a daze for a long time, not believing Qin Guang's words. But he couldn't refute it. When Qin Guang patted his shoulder in a very mature manner, he almost thought that Qin Guang was his elder. But after waiting for an hour or so, he finally cooperated with several parties to completely end the press conference, and his secretary sent back the online feedback to him. Admittedly, some people felt that Qin Guang was acting too casually on such a serious occasion. However, these doubters were soon scolded to the point where they couldn't tell north from south. The reason was simple. No matter how much trouble he caused at the press conference, he was the one who stood up bravely at the moment of life and death and turned the tide. No matter how beautiful his words were, it was useless. Qin Guang did the right thing. No matter how much he pushed the credit to Captain Frank, everyone knew that he was the real hero. As for his seemingly nonsensical explanations such as the Matrix and everything being ethereal, perhaps what he said was true. Otherwise, how could he explain that he could do the work of 3 people? He might seem to be acting cute, but he was actually speaking the truth. Also, he said he was a genius. That's right, we all think so too. We have been his fans for several months. Really, we have never seen him lose. Advertising himself at this serious press conference? Why not? If it wasn't for him, this wouldn't be a press conference. This would be a memorial service. You say he doesn't respect the dead? Have you ever seen someone who doesn't respect the dead? It was fine if he gave his credit to others, but he actually secretly donated $100,000. That was $100,000, equivalent to 600,000 renminbi in cash. Did he have the obligation to donate? No, not at all. But he had already done it first and he didn't even think of showing it off. He even gave it to others. He didn't do it with words. He did it to show his respect to Captain Frank. You keyboard warriors on the internet, if you have the ability, why don't you donate too? A true hero can be willful and has the right to be willful. So the worries of the China Airlines representative were completely unnecessary. Qin Guang's performance at the press conference not only did not bring him bad publicity, but it was also praised on the internet. It even made many people feel that this person was very real, very down to earth. He was not a fictional character living on TV, but a super down-to-earth and super down-to-earth civilian hero. A hero doesn't have to be like a saint, flaunting himself to be dazzling. A hero is also a human and we like this kind of all-rounder bro. Not convinced. Not convinced. Of course, there were also the older generation who felt that Qin Guang's performance was a little too undignified. They felt that this kid couldn't achieve greatness and was not steady enough. They used their one-finger zen to attack Qin Guang's performance on their personal Weibo. But the times belonged to the young and the internet also belonged to the young. Not long after, these old men were tearing up from the scolding of these young men. They closed their Weibo accounts and comments. The most pitiful old man even fainted on the spot from anger. Qin Guang and Sun Xiaoxuan were accompanied by a few China Airlines staff and waited in the VIP area of the airport. There was still half an hour before the plane took off. Actually, Sun Xiaoxuan was a little afraid of flying at this time, but Qin Guang was in a hurry to go to Beijing, and she really didn't want to take the train alone. So she mustered up her courage and followed. Oh right, Qin Guang, are you going back to school after playing the piano? School starts on the 1st. You still have to take makeup exams, right? Sun Xiaoxuan moved her head beside Qin Guang and looked at the comments on Weibo with him. Qin Guang thought about it. The cultivation pills Wenwen gave him had been used up recently and he was almost out. There was no conclusion to the matter with the martial artists, and it was hard for him to let it go. Recently, the production of his faith value had skyrocketed. He might as well stay in Yanjing and be closer to Wenwen. He could ask for more medicine from her and focus on the special training in the cup world so that he could master inner force as soon as possible. Then he could form the real eagle hero couple with her and destroy the poison sect, dark sect and other inner force forces that had disgusted him for more than a year, as well as Director Ouyang who had fled abroad. Otherwise, even if he returned to school now, he might not be able to live in peace if he was targeted again. The incident where he was chased by 2 Bone Force martial artists was still vivid in his mind. He learned from his mistakes. In the end, he was still not strong enough. I'm afraid it will be some time before I return to Beijing. I'll give up on the makeup exams. Oh, how can you do that? Sun Xiaoxuan said anxiously. Qin Guang smiled. It's okay. Help me sign up for recultivation. At the end of the semester I'll show you the zodiac sign of another genius. True invincible scholar. Are you afraid? Sun Xiaoxuan recalled Qin Guang's legendary career of barely managing to pass every single course he took in the past few years. He wanted to ridicule Qin Guang's invincible bookworm setting, but he recalled Qin Guang's unbelievable performance on the plane. Maybe he was not bragging? Maybe he was just not serious in the past? After arriving in Beijing, Sun Xiaoxuan did not continue to hang out with Qin Guang. Instead, he was dragged away by Gao Ye. Qin Guang went to the National Art Museum alone. The decoration of the museum had started last week, and Tingguang Brokerage was in charge of it. He had been away for a few days, not caring about anything. Fortunately, the others in the company were reliable. It did not make much difference whether he was there or not. Anyway, he had to continue doing what he had to do. Zhang, how are the tickets? Are they sold out? When Qin Guang arrived at the art museum, it was already past 9 p.m. Lu Xiaoyong was still yelling in the venue. When he heard Qin Guang's voice, he immediately turned around. My boss, thank God. You're finally back. You're too much of a troublemaker. No wonder Lu Xiaoyong was not bothered. He had been working hard on the piano performance, but Qin Fan had gone to America to arm wrestle. When he was done, it was time for him to go back to China to deal with business. Then he had a plane hijacking and a plane crash. If he really didn't come back, then this grand piano performance that was already halfway done would become a complete joke. What are you doing? Don't panic. Calm down. You are the publicity and public relations manager of Tingguang Agency. Don't embarrass me. Lu Xiaoyong stared at him. To be honest, I still think Chen Fan is more embarrassing. However, he could not say this out loud. There were about a third of the tickets left, but what? But since this afternoon I don't know what happened, but the booking phone has been ringing off the hook. The online booking system almost exploded. About 2 hours ago they were all booked. Lu Xiaoyong said very excitedly. Unlike Chen Guang's solo performances in the past, most of them did not charge for tickets. Even if they did, they were very low. There were less than 5,000 seats for this concert. Considering the hasty planning, the National Gallery of Art had spent a lot of money to cut the queue, and to invite a few masters at the last minute, more than 10 million had been invested. The television and online broadcasting rights combined only barely recouped the cost. Considering Qin Guang's terrifying ability to make money in the past, it was really embarrassing for Tianguang Brokerage's team to take on a big task alone, but in the end they did not make any money. Yu Hong and the others discussed and decided to change their strategy. They set the ticket price at a relatively high level. The lowest price was 300 yuan per ticket, and the VIP tickets near the stage were even more expensive. Although Qin Guang had a lot of fans, only a few of them would come from other places to attend the concert. Although the local fans were passionate, many of them were hesitant in front of the high ticket price. But this was not the main reason. Usually, piano performances were elegant arts and the audience was not wide. Most people who were willing to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to listen to a concert were people who really liked the piano and wanted to achieve a certain level of success in it. There were not many people like that. In addition, the matter came in a hurry. From the time Qin Guang said that he wanted to hold the concert until now, only a week had passed. The publicity cycle was too short, the time was too tight, and the radiation was too limited. Although they were lucky enough to invite 5 world-famous masters, the influence of this matter was still limited to Qin Guang's personal fan group. It was almost the next day, but Qin Guang had not returned. There were still 1/3 of the tickets left. In the morning, Lu Xiaoyong and the others were so anxious that their eyebrows were almost on fire. In the end, in the afternoon, there was suddenly a glimmer of hope, and the tickets were suddenly sold out. Now that Qin Guang had returned, Comrade Xiao Lu was very happy. This was called having 2 blessings. What do you mean you don't know? Third Guzi, although you were a talent when you were a paparazzi, it seems that you still have a lot to learn. You still have to walk the road of marketing slowly. Qin Guang said with a heavy heart as he continued, "Did you guys think that I'm just a boss that doesn't care about anything? You're all wrong. I am more concerned about my own matters than anyone else. You don't know how hard I worked to promote this concert." With that he walked in. Although time was tight, the venue was decorated decently and elegantly. "Huh? Is that so?" Comrade Xiao Lu followed behind Qin Guang with a confused face. He did not know what Qin Guang had done. "President Qin, are you satisfied with this?" Comrade Xiao Lu followed closely beside Qin Guang. Seeing him nodding his head in satisfaction from time to time, he was feeling proud. Qin Guang acknowledged, "It's all right." "It's only all right? President Qin, look at this piano again." Seeing Qin Guang's attitude, Comrade Xiao Lu felt hurt. Qin Guang looked up at the black piano, which was much bigger than the one he played before. "The workmanship is quite good, and then? Look at it again. Look at your sister. Don't keep me guessing. This is Master Bobrovsky's posthumous work." "I'm sorry, I don't know any Bobrovsky." "Sigh, all right. All right. I know that you are all working hard. Don't compare yourself to me. This is your job. Do the logistics well and then I can take care of all the problems. Don't worry, as long as I am here, Tianguang Brokerage will only get bigger and bigger." Qin Guang did not discourage him. Although he did not know Bobrovsky since Buttface had specifically mentioned it, perhaps there was something special about this piano. So he simply sat down on it. "Since I have nothing to do, I'll play a few songs to test my hand." Wu Tong walked out of the office, exhausted. Ever since she had been promoted to the district bureau chief in Yanjing, her responsibilities had become much heavier than before. When she was a team leader in Wenxing Town, she was only responsible for leading the charge. Now that she had become the bureau chief of a large branch, her regular work was not reduced, but there were more administrative matters. She knew that perhaps Wu Shan was secretly making things difficult for her. He had deliberately arranged things for her so that she would not have the time to pay attention to Qin Guang's matters. But this was Wu Tong's personality. The more you don't want me to do something, the more I want it. As a matter of fact, Qin Guang's piano performance at the National Gallery of Art happened to be in her jurisdiction. Considering the recent anti-terrorism situation in the country, as the bureau chief of the district bureau, she took on the responsibility for the piano performance's security. The world of destruction was too restless. Although the previous cleanup efforts were effective, there were still some fish that slipped through the net. In the past, the world of destruction was always probing China. This time, under Xuelin's pressure, they seemed to want to fight to the death. Although Wu Tong was a little selfish, she was still worried that the world of destruction would cause trouble at such a large-scale event in Beijing. Tomorrow was the official time to start the piano performance's security work. But after Wu Tong got off work, she decided to investigate the scene on her own. Halfway through the journey, she recalled many things that happened between her and Qin Guang. She subconsciously smiled. This guy was really busy recently. No matter where she went, he seemed to be everywhere. He organized competitions, started a company, and even acted in a movie. In between, he went to Guinness to sharpen pencils. After that, he went to America to arm wrestle. When he returned to China, he turned into a pilot and forced a plane to land. Now he was going to play the piano again. She really didn't know where he got so much energy from. After getting off the car, Wu Tong gradually became distracted on the way from the parking lot to the entrance of the gallery. She could feel that Qin Guang was very restless from how busy he was. With his lazy personality, if he didn't have any ulterior motives, he wouldn't put in so much effort. What did he want? What did he want? Money. He didn't lack money anymore. Status. At his age, he was the bureau chief of the Guangding General Bureau and had a vice-ministerial position. He was the same as her father Wu Shan. So what exactly did he want? Chapter 735. As she was going up the stairs, Wu Tong's phone rang. She picked it up and saw that it was a deputy director of the Yenjing Municipal Bureau. This deputy director was the team leader of the Shattered World Task Force, and Wu Tong was the deputy team leader. He was quite puzzled. Didn't they have a meeting less than half an hour ago? Why was he calling again? Little Wu, the investigation report for DL 199333 came out yesterday. Didn't there just be a press conference in the afternoon? Also, this is not under our jurisdiction, right? You don't say. This really has something to do with our task force. I'm already preparing to set off for Jiaodong City. According to the analysis of the accident investigation team, the two hijackers have a close relationship with the Shattered World. I also just received a notice for our Yenjing task force to assist in the investigation. After all, our task force has the most contact with the Shattered World people in the country. There's such a thing? Wu Tong was shocked. She also knew about the hijacking. Right, there's also a very special piece of information. It said that during the hijacking, the criminals directly called out Qin Guang's name. It's clear that they know Qin Guang. This matter may be related to the terrorist attack that Qin Guang handled in Detroit. Wu Tong's heart itched. Since this matter was related to Qin Guang, she also wanted to go to Jiaodong City. But after thinking about it, she felt that it was more important to stay in Yenjing to be responsible for the security of the piano performance. I've already asked Little Qin to send a more detailed file to your email. Take a look yourself. I have a feeling that your security work tomorrow must not be taken lightly. With that, the deputy director hung up. Wu Tong was not in a hurry to enter the National Gallery of Art. Instead, she sat on the stairs and read the information. The accident report regarding flight safety could indeed be made public, but the identity of the hijackers could not be made public. As for the passengers on the plane, although they also heard the criminals call out Qin Guang's name, Qin Guang was a celebrity. They could not think of such a deep reason. According to the information provided by the investigation team, there was indeed an organization behind the terrorist attack that Qin Guang had previously solved at the University of Detroit. The two criminals involved in the hijacking also belonged to this organization. Even though this organization wasn't the Shattered World, they had a close relationship with the Shattered World. Almost every year they would send people to the Shattered World for military training. Wu Tong's brows furrowed even tighter. From the looks of it, Qin Guang had already entered their sights. If they were from the World Destroyer, they would undoubtedly view Qin Guang as a thorn in their side when Xuelin didn't stop and failed to kidnap Qin Guang in the United States. Not to mention that Qin Guang even ruined their plans by coincidence. The Special Task Force leader's words did make some sense. They really couldn't let their guard down tomorrow. When Wu Tong walked into the art gallery, Qin Guang was about to play the second piece. The gallery was brightly lit and the workers were still busy, banging loudly. She hadn't seen him for a long time. When she saw him again, he seemed different from normal people. He sat in front of the piano in his casual clothes. The light that had just been set up shone from the ceiling on his back, giving him a different kind of glow. How did this kid become so handsome again? Am I hallucinating? With just a glance, Wu Tong felt like her breath was being captured by him. This little brother of hers was slowly becoming a star in the sky and she was still on the ground. He was slowly becoming unreachable and unreachable. She knew it might be an illusion. Whether it was him sitting on the stage or joking in front of her, he was still the same person. However, she couldn't get rid of the mysterious feeling in her heart. Wu Tong subconsciously picked up her phone and pointed the camera at Qin Guang. The moment she pressed the record button, Qin Guang's fingers started to move. Wu Tong didn't know much about music, but she was addicted to the music without any resistance. She had only seen him play the piano in his videos or in the concert videos of his left and right hand. She didn't expect that this guy could be so handsome when he played the piano live. In the spacious and splendid hall, the melodious variations on canon started slowly and echoed in every inch of the space. Qin Guang looked leisurely. His fingers danced on the keys agilely. The sound of the workers didn't disturb him at all. Instead, it seemed to be completely integrated into his music and became his accompaniment. Wu Tong held up her phone, recording as she slowly walked forward. When she finally stopped under the stage, Qin Guang had just finished playing the song. Lu Xiaoyong, who was standing beside Qin Guang, applauded warmly. President Qin, I really regret that I didn't record it. How did you do it just now? Even the sound of the workers' renovation was integrated into your music. Qin Guang stood up and clapped his hands. He said meaningfully, "Buttface, you don't understand. This is the charm of music." In fact, Qin Guang was quite regretful. What charm of music? It was just a coincidence. However, such a wonderful coincidence couldn't happen again. Forget it, I didn't record it. Hey Sister Wu Tong, why are you here? At this moment, Qin Guang noticed Wu Tong and came over with a chuckle. Wu Tong was still holding up her phone. Hey, why don't you give us a thank you after playing? I'm recording it. Did you record everything I played just now? Yes. That's good. Send it to me. I'll send it to my company and ask them to sort it out. Then I'll post it on the internet. Just take it as a leaked rehearsal video. Although the tickets had been sold out, the audience rating was still not guaranteed. It would be good to have more publicity. Qin Guang said again. By the way, what are you doing here at this time? Are you not busy with work now? Of course I am. Aren't I working overtime? Overtime. That's right, investigating the scene. I'll be in charge of security for your concert. How about it? Are you touched? Is there a need for you to come? You don't like me, do you? No. I just feel that it's a waste of public resources. Wu Tong shook her head and pulled Qin Guang to the side. After thinking about it, she decided to tell Qin Guang about the potential risks. After listening to Wu Tong, Qin Guang's brows furrowed like a knot. He was also annoyed by the lingering spirits of the world breaker. This feeling of being in the light while the other party was in the dark was terrible. Don't worry. The situation has been special recently. It's not just ordinary police officers who are participating in the security work. I've also sent people from the Guangdong Police Headquarters. Aren't you the chief of the Guangdong Police Headquarters? I'm doing this for your sake. Anyway, there are quite a few mutants from your unit. It's to ensure that nothing goes wrong. Recently, we've arrested and killed at least 20 to 30 world breaker assassins. They're not that big of a threat in the country. Wu Tong comforted Qin Guang at this time. It was impossible to cancel the event just because of some unstable factors. If that was really the case, he wouldn't be able to live in peace. Chapter 736. China had never been a disaster area for terrorist attacks. On one hand, it was different from other countries. China had the largest and most resolute army in the world. On the other hand, it was also because of China's relatively strong attitude. China's soldiers were iron-blooded and would never compromise. It was also because of China's style of doing things that most terrorist organizations would stay away from this country. Unless it was absolutely necessary, no one would want to go against this unyielding regime. They had spent so much effort to get hold of a certain weakness of China and wanted to negotiate with them. In the end, the other party said, "Go ahead and bomb as much as you want. We're not afraid of bombing. At most we'll slowly deal with the aftermath. But you guys better be prepared to face our crazy revenge." Because of this, China was different from other countries. Large-scale terrorist attacks rarely happened in China. Extremist organizations were also people, and they had to weigh the pros and cons. Not many people were willing to pay a heavy price for nothing. If it wasn't for Shui Lin, the broken world wouldn't have taken such a risk. "Alright, if there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. I only wanted to come and take a look. Why don't we have supper together? It's been a while." Qin Guang chuckled as he forwarded Wu Tong's video to Lu Xiaoyang. His eyes were sparkling as he chuckled. Looking around, Wu Tong noticed that there was no one else aside from the two of them. With a charming smile, she moved her head over and pressed her chest against Qin Guang's chest. "You naughty brother, are you feeling restless after escaping from death? Supper? I'm afraid you want to eat me." Having his thoughts exposed, Qin Guang shook his head and replied, No, definitely not. I'd be a fool if I believed you, but I really can't do it today. I still have to go and negotiate with the other 2 district police stations to transfer more police forces here. You don't want to play the piano and cause the crowd to explode, right?" Wu Tong's face turned red as she spoke. She thought that she could maintain her composure after not seeing him for a long time. But now that she saw him and there was no one else around, she couldn't help but feel restless. The two of them were so close to each other that even the slightest movement would cause the tearing sensation to spread to the sensitive part of her chest, causing her face to flush red and her breathing to accelerate. She didn't know why, but as soon as she saw him, her mind would involuntarily come up with many charming thoughts, completely out of control. She remembered how energetic she was in the meeting just now, and then she thought about her current state. She didn't look like a bureau chief at all. She looked like a resentful woman who finally got a good rain after a long drought. Why am I like this? She wondered if there was poison in Qin Guang's body. When she got close to him, smelled his scent and listened to his voice, some kind of extra hormone in her cerebral cortex was secreted uncontrollably, making her whole head feel numb. She used to be able to restrain herself a little, but after spending that night with him in the hospital, that little bit of restraint disappeared. She just wanted to be more presumptuous, as if only by doing so could she feel her own existence. It was as if the other meaning of her life, besides serving justice as a police officer, was to seduce him. But now she didn't know why, she felt that she was getting farther and farther away from him. It was as if he was about to become a star in the sky, hanging high in the bright night sky, visible but untouchable. Sometimes Wu Tong also felt afraid. She was really afraid that one day she would suddenly disappear from his life and become no longer important. Okay, you go. Qin Guang was a little depressed. He didn't want to admit it. Even if he acted like he was the most important person in the world and could take on anything in front of others, when he really slipped from the cushion to the ground, he really felt some joy and fear of escaping from death. Unfortunately, in front of others he was a great hero. It was okay to act cute, but in the end he couldn't let others see the weak and afraid side of his heart. He said that he was afraid of death, but it was not modest. Who wasn't afraid of death? Didn't he fight so hard because he didn't want to die? Now that he saw Wu Tong in private, his heart was a little relaxed. If it was possible, he really wanted to chat with Wu Tong more. He wanted to ask her if it was tiring to be the district bureau chief recently. He wanted to ask her what happened with Broken World and those people in Yanjing. He also wanted to talk to her about what was going through his mind when he was chased by 2 bone-strength martial artists. He wanted to talk to her about how proud he was when he stood at the peak of the Dota world, how arrogant he was when he won the Guinness pencil sharpening contest, and how cute he was when he was arm wrestling with those burly men in Detroit. He wanted to talk about how he was first looked down upon and then shocked by those idiots. There were so many things he wanted to talk to her about, so many things he wanted to say. But now she had to leave again before he could say more than a few words. It was impossible to say that he didn't regret it. Look at how wronged you are. Okay, I'll give you 15 minutes. Wu Tong's face was red. Her body gradually pressed forward, getting closer and closer. Her mind gradually became muddled. She really wanted to do one thing. She wanted to make Qin Guang, who was about to fly to the sky, more vulgar. She wanted him to fall back to the ground and make him feel more real. 15 minutes? Right here. What if you're seen naked? Qin Guang panicked as he looked around. He's in the backstage of the gallery and there might be someone walking over at any moment. Isn't this a little too exciting? He was thick-skinned, but what if Wu Tong walked out naked? That would be a great loss. You wish. I'm not that stupid, Wu Tong said as she moved closer. Her hand slowly reached out, passing through Qin Guang's belt. She went straight to the place where she had looked closely and wiped for him personally. She closed her fingers and held it gently. She clamped her legs together. She recalled the time when she was in the special training camp at Shund. She turned her phone on vibrate and kept calling this guy. Her eyes gradually became confused. Time seemed to have turned back to a long time ago. At that time she was lying in the ward with Qin Guang. Then he went berserk. At that time she was very ignorant and thought that he had kidney deficiency and his vitality was unstable. Later she heard from the shadow woman that there was nothing wrong with him in that aspect. Regarding this problem she seemed to have never been able to confirm it. I really haven't touched him for a long time. I'll give it a try today. She said that she would only give him 15 minutes. Half an hour later, Wu Tong finally stuffed a pack of tissues into Qin Guang's hands. Clean up yourself. I'm leaving. Her hands were wet and sticky, but Wu Tong didn't feel disgusted. Very good. This guy is still immortal. He hasn't become an immortal. Qin Guang leaned against the wall. His face was full of satisfaction. Looking at Wu Tong's back as she hurried away, he shivered all over. Sister Wu Tong is still so charming. No, compared to the past with the promotion of her position, she had an indescribable aura of a superior, although she didn't realize it herself. The more it was like this, the more special it felt when something happened between them. Wu Tong sat alone in the car. It took her a whole 5 minutes to calm down. It was really dangerous just now. She was teased by Qin Guang to the point that she almost wanted to take off her clothes on the spot. Fortunately, this guy gave up his weapon at the critical moment. Otherwise, it would have been hard to escape. Chapter 737. What? You two slept in the same room last night? And you let him go just like that? Gaoye sat up on the bed in a high-class neighborhood far away from Beijing's 4th Ring Road. She looked at Sun Xiaoxuan angrily. Sun Xiaoxuan blushed. What else can I do? He's so tired. Do you want me to torture him? Gaoye poked Sun Xiaoxuan's head. Are you stupid? Let me tell you, men are never tired when it comes to that kind of thing, especially Qin Guang's age. Even if he just ran 10,000 meters, he'll burn you to ashes if you light a fire. Do you believe me? Sun Xiaoxuan didn't believe her. Huh. You're so stupid. So stupid. You'll die of stupidity sooner or later. Qin Guang isn't that kind of person. Xiaoxuan, do you know what's the stupidest thing about you? What? The stupidest thing about you is that you think you understand men. Or rather, you think you understand Qin Guang. Don't I understand him? No, what you understand is only the perfect version of him that you have created in your heart. It's not the real him. Believe me, if you don't give it your all, you'll slowly lose him. Even if he becomes more and more important in your heart, you'll become less and less important in his heart. Sun Xiaoxuan fell silent. She couldn't compete with Gaoye. All along, Gaoye had handled things more maturely and magnanimously than her. Now that Gaoye and Lin Jingwei were close, Sun Xiaoxuan was envious of them. Qin Guang isn't as strong and perfect as you make him out to be. I saw the press conference. He's really afraid of death, but he's just putting up a front in front of you. He's actually afraid too. You missed your chance. Really. You're too close to the situation. You're crazy. Gaoye sighed again. If you don't believe me, I'll ask Lin to test him tomorrow. Aren't we going to the Great Wall tomorrow? Why are you still going? Your man is going to play the piano. Aren't you going to support him? Let me tell you another piece of good news. During this time, your love rival is still abroad and can't come back. Pai love rival? Who is it? Jin Shuiwei and Jiang Yage. Jin Shuiwei alone is enough. Why did Jiang Yage get involved as well? Sun Xiaoxuan still didn't know about this. It was Lin Jingwei, the blabbermouth, who sold this information to Gaoye. Gaoye smiled evilly. What a sad person. How many people are eyeing your man now? You can't even count them with your fingers. Hey. Gaoye, thank you. Sun Xiaoxuan lowered his head. Gaoye looked at her desolate expression and sighed. Sai Xiaosun, if it were up to me, I would advise you to just let it go. You're also very outstanding, but he doesn't suit you and you don't suit him either. Trust me, I won't be wrong. Then why didn't you persuade me? Because most of the time, people who aren't suitable for each other will definitely end up together. And people who aren't suitable for each other might end up together in happiness. Plus, I can't persuade you, can I? Sun Xiaoxuan hugged her knees and stared blankly at the evening news on the TV. It was about the plane crash again. After careful editing, Qin Guang looked serious and decent again. The elders had put in a lot of effort to help Qin Guang portray a positive image. How could he be saved like this? The next morning, Lu Xiaoyang and the other middle-level managers of Tianguang Entertainment wanted Qin Guang to rehearse at the art gallery. However, their request was rejected by Qin Guang. He didn't think he needed to rehearse at his level. Even if he played with his eyes closed, it wouldn't make a difference. Yangshi came just in time. He was under Big Beard Deng's orders. Obviously, Yangshi had become a sticky candy for Big Beard Deng in the days before the movie officially started shooting. He would stick to Qin Guang all the time. Didn't you tell Uncle Big Beard about my acting skills? I did, but Director Deng thought I was bragging. Qin Guang sat in the driver's seat. Yangshi sat in the passenger's seat while Feng Tianyu and Lu Xiaoyang sat in the back. About half an hour ago, Qin Guang and Xin Yuliang had contacted each other. They planned to take advantage of this time to settle all the endorsement contracts and commercials that needed to be shot. More than a dozen companies had spent 150 million yuan on him, but he didn't even get a single photo. He felt really bad. If someone else encountered such a spokesperson, they would have long exploded. Fortunately, these second and third generation bosses had heard about Qin Guang's recent situation from their seniors, which shocked them to the core. What happened to Jin Shiyue's boyfriend? What happened to cozy up to her? How did you become a real cozy up to her without saying a word? What about us second and third generation bosses? Look at your speed of promotion. You are the destined one, right? Also, we all know how the Tangjie Foundation got the money to set up your company. Not only did you get promoted, but you also got rich. That's too much. Therefore, no matter how much money Qin Guang took the money and did not do anything, these people could only grit their teeth and make preparations first. When Master Guang was free, they would drag him over and get rid of him. Among these people, the most bitter one was probably Xin Yuliang and his online ride-hailing company. Qin Guang's personal situation was the most compatible with his online ride-hailing company. He even specially prepared a set of publicity and packaging plans for this. Recently, ever since Xin Yuliang's company merged with another foreign tycoon's branch in China, the era of online ride-hailing in China officially came to an end. At the same time, because of the implementation of the new policies, the price of online ride-hailing in China increased by more than 30%. In a short period of time, there was a big rebound in China. Whether it was the number of part-time drivers or the volume of orders from consumers, there was an obvious decline. Even the company's share price fell and its market value dropped by tens of billions. Xin Yuliang was burning with anxiety. He wanted to ride on Qin Guang's recent popularity and come up with a good advertising plan. He wanted to increase the popularity of the online ride-hailing platform and stabilize the company's share price. He had already set up the advertising team and was just waiting for Master Guang's arrival. The dozen companies had signed the endorsement contract at the same time, and one of the companies happened to be in the business of shooting commercials, so the dozen companies simply tied this matter to this guy. The scripts of the various companies had already been written. On Qin Guang's side, Tianguang's agency had already reviewed all the scripts according to the tone set by Qin Guang. They were in line with his personal position, so they could directly start filming. Well, actually, he did not have a position at all. As long as the films were normal, there was no problem. Everything was ready except for the male lead. Once they heard that Qin Guang had time, Xin Yuliang and the advertising planning company only used less than 20 minutes to select the person. At the same time, they also temporarily set up the filming studio. Other people would often fly around the world to meet the company's needs when filming advertisements. However, Qin Guang's advertisement was different. As early as when they signed the contract, Qin Guang's attitude was very clear. You can shoot the film and I will cooperate fully, but don't drag me around. If you can settle it in the same place at once, don't drag it out twice. Therefore, although the script was extravagant, the actual filming would still be done in the filming studio. As for the other things, they would be added to the green screen in post-production. It was none of their business. Fortunately, the media industry was becoming more and more developed, and the division of labor in various aspects was becoming clearer. With appropriate planning, this was completely achievable. Mr. Shin, we don't have to drag everyone here, right? If we can't finish it today, we can continue tomorrow. The director in charge of filming was also an expert in the industry. He had a lot of experience. More than a dozen scripts were all produced by him. The length ranged from 2 minutes to 30 seconds. Perhaps not all of them were classics, but they were all in line with the positioning of each company. Apart from Shin Yuliang, who had already arrived in person, the relevant people in charge of the other companies were also in the process of rushing over one after another. Shin Yuliang patted this old man on the shoulder. I didn't want to either, but Brother Chen Guang said that the length of more than a dozen films added up to less than half an hour. He is tight on time, so he will finish all of them in one go today. The director rolled his eyes. Looking at the 20 or so contracted models waiting at the side, he felt very upset. He heard that there were 3 other companies sending their other spokespeople here. Really, this Chen Guang said he wouldn't come and he wouldn't come. Once he came, he had to gather everyone. Why are you so ostentatious? What are you thinking? Did you really think that a 30-second advertisement would only take 30 seconds? Let's not talk about the makeup and costumes. Don't treat a bean bun like dry vegetables. Filming an advertisement also requires acting skills, okay? Every expression and movement must be on point, okay? Acting in an advertisement is also an art, okay? If there is a slight mistake, it will be a NG and we will have to start over, okay? Otherwise, the audience will be embarrassed and the advertisement will not achieve the desired effect. Wouldn't that be fooling the audience? To prevent the content from being repeated, other than Chen Guang, the other characters in the advertisement will be different. That's why this company called all their models over. When it was time for the actual filming, each company might have more specific requirements. So, under Shin Yuliang's insistence, the director had to ask his assistant to contact the relevant publicity department of each company. Obviously, Mr. Chen wanted to shoot all 12 commercials for the 12 companies in one day. Alright. He had to leave by 6 p.m. at the latest because he had a concert at 8 p.m. That meant he only had half of the day to shoot. Oh my god, what the hell? I've been in commercials my whole life and I've never seen anything so ridiculous, okay? When other celebrities get a $10 million endorsement deal, the sponsors will not dare to go west. If the sponsors say that the advertisement is not good and want to reshoot it, they can even go to Northern Europe to reshoot for 7 to 8 days. You, on the other hand, have 12 contracts with a total value of 150 million, and you want to finish all of them in one day? Why are you so arrogant? As a big shot in the advertising industry, this guy had changed his outlook on life. I want to see how you are going to shoot 12 advertisements in one day. You want to fool me? No way. You are shameless, but I still want to be shameless. If I shoot a bunch of rubbish with my name on it, how am I going to survive in the industry? Won't my reputation be ruined? No matter what, I must be strict and have high standards. Just wait and see how hundreds of people will fool around with you for the whole day. If you can't act well and the scenes change too fast and it will be all green screen post-production, the models who are acting with you will all be eliminated. Not one of them will pass. Chapter 738. Chu Ming gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. He had made up his mind. No matter how Mr. Shin tried to plead for Chen Guang, he had to be perfect. He couldn't afford to make any mistakes. If you have any objections, I'll just get someone else to do it. I won't be able to handle such a difficult male lead anyway. I, Chu Ming, have been directing commercials for more than 20 years. I have my own professionalism. Even if you guys are willing to make do with it, I'm sorry, but I, Chu Ming, live by 3 words. Never make do with it. Old Chu, don't pull a long face. You don't know how hard it was for us to invite Chen Guang. I know you're under a lot of pressure, so please bear with it. It wasn't the first time Shin Yuliang and Chu Ming had worked together. One look at Chu Ming's face and he knew that he was angry. Actually, Shin Yuliang didn't say it out loud. Even he felt that Chen Guang was too much and knew how to put on airs. Because of you and Brother Bai Hua, as well as the importance the elders have placed on you, we want to improve our relationship with you. That's why we're rushing to give you money. That being said, we're willing to give you money. We also know that you're a busy man. You can't be like other celebrities who don't care about endorsement contracts. So if you don't want to move around and follow the director's orders, we'll accept it. To make it easier for you, we've even gathered all 12 companies to shoot in one company. But you want to shoot 12 commercials in one day? To be honest, Brother Chen Guang, you're a little hurtful. Shin Yuliang thought that, but he didn't show any dissatisfaction on his face. He even comforted Chu Ming. Chu Ming sighed. President Shin, I'm not trying to nitpick. I've seen people shoot 3 commercials in one day, but they're all great actors. They're famous in the industry for being able to move quickly and work well with each other. But as for Chen Guang, I admit that he's great in other aspects, and I also admit that he's very popular in the country recently. But what did he do in the past have anything to do with filming? Shin Yuliang wanted to say something but stopped. Chu Ming interrupted him again. Don't use his scenes in Tears for a Country to comfort me. I know what happened. Back then when they filmed that scene, Big Beard Deng almost fainted from anger. Why do you think he can take 12 pictures a day? He's slapping the faces of all the bosses. How could he be so arrogant? President Shin, what kind of background does he have? Is it worth it? Shin Yuliang sighed. What kind of background could Chen Guang have? He really couldn't say anything about this matter. If he did, he was afraid of scaring people to death. Old Chu, please bear with him. Anyway, don't ask too much of him later. Let's try our best to finish filming today. Impossible. Shin, you know me very well. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. The films that I, Old Chu, produce have never been bad. Hi. Why are you so stubborn? I have my own principles too. You let me take this job because you think highly of my ability. I can't fool you. It's no big deal, it's no big deal, you can just replace him. Hey Old Chu, why are you being so stubborn? I'm not being stubborn. I'm just stating the facts. After waiting for a while, people from the other 11 companies came one after another. Shin Yuliang was the only one who was at the level of Shin Yuliang. The other companies at most only sent the manager of the publicity department or the manager of the marketing department. Although no one said anything, they didn't seem to be very happy. Shin Yuliang still wanted to comfort Chu Ming, but it was useless. While the two of them were arguing, Chen Guang, accompanied by Yang Shi Yu Hong and Lu Xiaoyang, came from the entrance of the advertising agency. So this is Chen Guang? He looks so young. Honestly, he's more handsome in real life than on TV. Little lass, are you yearning for love? You'd better save your breath. Look at the people around him. They don't like small models like us. Maybe because his bald head was too dazzling, Chen Guang was recognized from afar. Of course he didn't think so. The old man walked with a dignified manner. When he walked, the aura of the 955 elements would dissipate naturally. Of course he was quite different from the others. Chen, don't you think we are too arrogant? Lu Xiaoyang saw many familiar faces that he had seen before when he signed the contract. He felt a little guilty. Chen Guang pretended to be ignorant. How are we arrogant? How about we shoot 2 or 3 films today? Can we continue tomorrow? Lu Xiaoyang finally said what was on his mind. Chen Guang said with a smile. Buttface, I've told you not to try to figure out me, your boss, with the mentality of an ordinary person. Otherwise, you won't be able to keep up with me sooner or later. Don't you think so, Brother Yang? Yang Shi rolled his eyes. To be honest, he used to be a TV commercial director. He knew Chen Guang's acting skills were excellent. However, he really didn't think Chen Guang would succeed today. He also felt that Chen Guang was being a little too careless. Even if you're good at acting, how can you guarantee that the person you're acting with will be fine? Brother Chen Guang, you're finally here. Do you want to take a break? Then you can shoot my first one. Shin Yuliang walked over with Chu Ming beside him. Chen Guang waved his hand carelessly. It doesn't matter. Shoot. There are so many people here. How can we waste our time? You also know that it's a waste of time to call everyone here? Mr. Chen, you're really extravagant, Chu Ming said sarcastically. Turning around, Chen Guang looked at Chu Ming. This old man looked to be in his 50s with a grizzled beard. He wore a pair of brown spectacles and his goatee was tied into a whip. He looked somewhat artistic and he should be the director of this advertisement. However, the words that came out of his mouth weren't pleasant to the ears. Ignorance is bliss. He must have thought that I'm going to mess things up today. That's why he's not happy with me. What a pitiful guy. He's trying to figure out the old man's acting skills with the mentality of an ordinary person. Shin Yuliang felt a headache coming on. If it weren't for the fact that Chu Ming had written all the scripts, he would have kicked this stupid director away. You're the only one who's not happy? You think you're the only one who's not happy? I'm the one who's not happy. Can't you see that I'm holding it in? Do you think it's easy for us to maintain our relationship? It's hard to provide help in times of need, but it's easy to add flowers to brocade. Qin Guang didn't lack money right now, and if he angered the other party, what could he do if the other party decided to break the contract? Sue the director of the Guangdong General Bureau for breaking the contract? No way. Other companies can just change their spokesperson, but I'm in big trouble. Where am I going to find such a suitable spokesperson? Xin Yuliang was holding the thousands of taxi booking forms that Qin Guang had made in the past. He was just waiting for the TV commercial to be shot. Then the company's resources would be focused on him. That way he'd be able to get the company's image back on track. The more crucial it was, the more afraid he was of something going to go wrong. Brother Qin Guang, old Chu didn't mean it that way. To his surprise, Chu Ming waved his hand. Mr. Shin, don't give me a way out. That's exactly what I meant. Mr. Chin, I know you're famous now. I'm just a small director. I don't have much influence. I think you might have a misunderstanding about TV commercials. You think it's as simple as holding the product and posing according to the script. No. I have to tell you, it's not that simple. I don't know what makes you think you can finish all 12 in a day, but I can tell you clearly that if you don't meet my requirements, you won't get a single one today. Xin Yuliang pinched his forehead. I can't take it anymore. My heart, liver, stomach and kidneys are all hurting. At the same time, Qin Guang was furious. Isn't this Chu Ming a little too full of himself? Fine, if you're really that capable, then let's get someone else. I've been slapping your face too many times recently and you're trying to act cool. If I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know why flowers bloom. Mr. Chu, don't be like this. Qin Guang's acting is very good. Yang Shi spoke up at this time. He also felt the tension in the air, so he quickly stepped forward to smooth things over. Yang Shi, why are you here? Chu Ming clearly knew who Yang Shi was. Yang Shi looked at Qin Guang apologetically. His eyes were saying, Big bro, please give me some face and don't get mad. Looking at Su Tao's pleading appearance, Qin Guang's heart softened. Consider yourself lucky that someone is pleading for you. Otherwise, Qin Guang would really have followed your wishes and sent you packing. Yang Shi saw that Qin Guang had finally calmed down, so he said, Isn't Qin Guang going to act in women? Director Deng asked me to follow Brother Qin and explain the script to him. Chu Ming snorted. Come on, I've seen director's assistants guiding scenes, but I've never seen anyone like you following around 24/7. You even came to my place. Don't try to fool me. Mr. Chen's acting is really good. Do you think Mr. Deng would let you guide him? This time it was Yang Shi's turn to have a headache. He quickly turned to Qin Guang and blinked. He pretended to introduce, Brother Qin Guang, when I was in school Mr. Chu taught me a few photography courses. He's very famous in school and he's very good at making commercials. A good commercial will help you build up your image. Seeing that Chu Ming was on the verge of tears, Qin Guang understood Yang Shi's intentions. It seemed that Yang Shi really respected this old fella. Forget it, I owe you a favor since you helped me when I was still a burden in Wujing Film City, so I'll give you some face. Alright, Brother Yang, you don't have to say anymore. I understand. Director Chu, I know why you have such a big problem with me, but I have to make this clear. I'm not trying to act like a big shot today. Let's cut the *T and shoot the scene the way we're supposed to shoot. Let's just read the script and see how it goes, alright? Alright, let's go get our makeup done. Xin Yuliang was afraid that the two of them would quarrel if they continued talking, so he immediately came over and dragged Qin Guang away. Chapter 739. After Qin Guang left, Yu Hong and Lu Xiaoyang took the opportunity to apologize to the people in charge of each company. Their boss was hard to please, and it was difficult for the two middle managers of Tianguang Agency to clean up his mess. The two of them were also unlucky. If they knew this would happen, they would have dragged Fong Tianyu along. This guy was using the National Art Museum as an excuse to avoid trouble. Actually, Yu Hong and Lu Xiaoyang didn't have much confidence. Although they didn't know much about the advertising industry, they still understood the basic principles of advertising. Time was too tight. After Director Chen's commercial, he might not have a cancer of embarrassment, but he would most likely have a benign tumor of embarrassment. Sigh, Brother Shin, is it really difficult for me to do this? As Qin Guang sat before the mirror, a beautiful makeup artist was currently applying makeup on his face. Although he was confident in his looks, he had heard that makeup was a demonic art that could increase his looks to the point that even the leaders of the central government would be attracted to him. He even wanted to use a beauty camera for a live broadcast, let alone a commercial. Moreover, if he did not put on makeup, the pores on his face would be captured by the camera. I am an artist who relies on my looks to make a living. Well, he definitely wouldn't admit that what he really enjoyed wasn't the makeup, but the beautiful makeup artist who had huge breasts, a low collar, and often bent down to show off her cleavage. So he decided to say something casual to Shin Yuliang to make himself look like a decent person. Shin Yuliang's face froze. Qin Guang's words made him hesitate. At this moment, Qin Guang could tell that Su Tao was a little awkward. Qin Guang thought that it was not good to always owe others favors, and he should take care of this guy's feelings. If you have any thoughts, just say it. Don't keep it to yourself. It's not good. Sigh, brother Qin Guang, I will be honest with you. Only you can do it like this. If it was someone else, even a superstar like Zhou Tianwang, they would not be able to do it like this. You know, this is a bit, isn't it too much? Qin Guang looked at the mirror without turning his head. A little. Qin Guang smiled and said, don't worry. I can't say if I'll force it or not, but there won't be a problem with me. If something really goes wrong, it will definitely be because of Director Chu. Chu Ming, who was pretending to talk to the female model, was actually eavesdropping on Qin Guang and Shin Yuliang. He almost exploded. In his own words, he did not even know how he endured it. Perhaps it was because he saw that Shin Yuliang was too cautious in front of Qin Guang, so he also realized that he had his own goals and principles. Of course, it was not a problem for him to have high requirements for filming. This was also in line with the interests of Shin Yuliang, the company's CEO. But if he really crossed the line and offended Qin Guang to death in the end, the film would not be filmed today. At worst, Qin Guang could just change the director another day, and Shin Yuliang's promotion plan would have to be delayed. In the end, the one who would suffer losses and offend people would still be himself. Although he was professional and arrogant, he was not stupid. Yang Shi, apart from being an artist, what background does Qin Guang have? Chu Ming quietly pulled Yang Shi to the side and asked in a low voice. Yang Shi thought for a long time but still did not understand. If it was before, he could still talk about Jin Shirui, but now that Qin Guang and Jin Shirui were so close to each other, it became something that he could not talk about. Mr. Chu, I'm not sure either, but please don't target him. It's pointless. It's pointless for me to explain it to you now. I also know that apart from facial expressions, there is a high requirement for body language. All I can tell you is that Qin Guang's acting is absolutely fine. As long as the other people in your company cooperate well, it's not impossible to finish the 12 shoots today. Chu Ming's eyes widened in disbelief. Yang Shi, are you trying to fool me too? I'm really not trying to fool you. Alright, Teacher Chu, give me the other scripts. I'll go and talk to the people in the last few scripts first. Since I'm already here, I'll just treat it as a free assistant for you. I can even help you improve your efficiency. Come on, from what you're saying, it sounds like you can really shoot a few. Teacher Chu, let's stop here. There's always a higher mountain, and there are some people in the world that can't be judged by common sense. Qin Guang is such a person and there's no escaping it. The makeup process took about half an hour. At 10 a.m. sharp, Qin Guang changed into his pajamas and was ready to start work. Unlike movies and TV shows, commercials usually had very few lines, but the actors had to have a good grasp of the emotions. Chu Ming wrote a total of 4 scripts for Shin Yuliang's company. Each script was about 15 seconds long. When it came time to place the commercials, they were split into 4 scripts to make it easier for Shin Yuliang to choose and express himself. 3 of the scripts focused on the passengers. Qin Guang would be playing the role of a passenger in 3 different stories. The first one, Qin Guang would be playing the role of a husband waiting for his wife to give birth. The time would be late at night. There were 3 characters in total. Qin Guang would be playing the role of the husband, the model would be playing the wife, and the male model would be playing the driver. Originally, this kind of film was supposed to be shot outdoors at night, but because of a certain person's special request to act like a big shot, they had no choice but to simply move the car onto the set. As for the other night scenes, the helpless roar towards the empty streets at night, the crying and anxiety of not being able to hail a taxi, everything was left to the post-production. They were just that willful. With modern technology, it was not difficult to achieve this in post-production. The difficult part was the actors, especially the main character Chen Guang. He had to play the role of a husband waiting for his wife to give birth, but he could not hail a cab to the hospital in a few seconds. The driver, on the other hand, only had 2 to 3 seconds of footage. He stopped next to Chen Guang and his wife, and smiled gently. "Hello, this is a taxi booking online. Did you hail a cab?" In the second film, Chen Guang was still playing the role of a passenger. However, he was playing the role of an office worker who was late for work. In the third film, Chen Guang would be playing the role of a down-and-out boss who had lost his wallet and was rushing to meet with his clients. In the fourth film, he would be doing his old job. He would simply drive around the set, highlighting the excellent driving skills and law-abiding skills of the online driver. At the end, he would say, "I am Chen Guang. I am waiting for you." Of these 4 small theaters, except for the last one, which was relatively easy, the other 3 all had a certain plot. Through the change of mood, they had to render the biggest characteristic of online taxi booking, which was the high-quality service on call, so that the passengers could change from passive waiting to active summoning. They could appear in front of the passengers in time when they needed it the most. Chapter 740. Now that internet cafes are forced to raise their prices, they have to use this method to tell the consumers that they are more expensive than taxi companies. This is because they are using a higher cost to provide better quality services. We can always appear by your side in the most convenient way when you need us the most, so that you don't have to worry about waiting. At the same time, the car you take is also smoother, cleaner, and more upscale than a taxi. It was hard to say if the online company could manage the drivers well, but they still had to brag about what should be bragged in the advertisement. Chen Guang had also filmed advertisements for Dragon Gate Express in the past, but at that time he did not have any acting skills, and he only needed to face the camera with a stiff expression and say, "Dragon Gate Express, delivery will definitely arrive." This time it was different. There was a setting, a background story, other characters, and a theme outside of the advertisement. Now Chen Guang was wearing pajamas because his wife had suddenly gone into labor. He didn't even have time to change his clothes before he helped her to the side of the road and waited for the car with difficulty. Chu Ming held onto his notebook and explained the script to Chen Guang over and over again. He had already steeled his heart. He didn't care what Chen Guang wanted to do, nor did he care about his attitude towards Shen Yuliang. In any case, he was going to do his job flawlessly and fulfill his responsibilities. "You can't blame me for messing things up today, okay? Mr. Chen, listen carefully. Later, when you help the actress walk forward, you must pay attention to a few movements and key points. A pregnant woman, especially one who is about to give birth, can't do strenuous activity. At the same time, you have to protect her abdomen so that she doesn't bend over too much, but you have to move with strength. You have to support part of the weight of the actress. You have to convince people that you're really a father-to-be. Although this is a commercial, your performance still needs to have tension. You need to use your strength or else you won't be able to resonate with the audience in front of the TV." Chen Guang nodded. Even though Chu Ming was annoying, his words made sense. "Right, I understand." "Don't say that you understand. What do you know? Remember, don't use too much force." "Do you know what it means to use too much force? For example, I'm a young lad and someone bumped my shoulder on the street. I'm a little unhappy and then I have this expression." Chu Ming said, suddenly baring his fangs and brandishing his claws. "That's using too much force." Many new artists who don't have any acting skills often make this mistake when they're filming commercials. They think that the art of acting must be exaggerated. In fact, the so-called acting comes from life. The real effect of acting must be brought back to life. Chen Guang silently chose to ignore this guy in his heart. "Do you know who you're talking to? The first world-class acting master in human history, Chen Guang, okay?" He really wanted to slap him in the nose. "Forget it, for the sake of your age, I'll give in to you a little. The next part is the most difficult part. I'm not trying to criticize you, Mr. Chen, but you're really making things difficult for yourself and me. Can't we just do our outdoor scenes? You have to." "Director Chu, I'm not a child, I don't need you to lecture me." Chen Guang decided to give this guy a friendly reminder. Otherwise he wouldn't stop. He just wanted this guy to shut up and show him real acting. "Fine. Next you have to face the air. Yes, in post-production you and the actress will be standing by the side of the road. You have to wave at the air and I'll arrange for a taxi to pass in front of you. At this time you have to be excited and excited. Then when you see that there's someone in the car, they'll ignore you and drive away. You'll be disappointed, but at the same time you'll be anxious. That's right, I'm anxious. I'm really anxious. Qin Guang nodded. He understood what Tu Ming was saying. Then the second taxi will come. It's empty, but it still ignores you and drives away. At this time you'll be angry, but we can't use vulgarities in the commercial. You have to find a way to act like an angry expectant father, but at the same time, you have to suppress your anxiety. Qin Guang nodded again. That's right, I'm really angry and anxious now. At this time the third taxi will come. It's your wife, the actress who had just booked a taxi online. Do you see that miting with its logo removed? Then the car will move and stop in front of you. The actress, who is sweating from the pain, will ask for your credit. You'll be grateful but also ashamed. Then you'll say something that I never thought of. Although Tu Ming had said so much, the entire scene was only 15 seconds long. This was the charm of commercials. In the shortest amount of time, using the most refined camera angles to tell a complete story. At the same time, it had to fit the product perfectly, express the client's desire, and convey the most intuitive emotion to the consumer. Of course, not all good commercials had to tell a story. No one could deny that the magical, no gifts accepted this holiday was a classic commercial. But that was Tu Ming's style. His commercials always had a strong personality and story. Singing and dancing in front of the camera, or saying things like, "Call Uncle, see if you have a stomachache," or, "Do you want to know the taste of clean mouth?" Anyone could act in these commercials. However, Tu Ming's script had a very high requirement for an actor's skills. It was because of the refinement of the scene and timing that all the performances had to be perfect. If there was any mistake, the audience would feel uncomfortable and the commercial would be ruined. His previous anger was not completely without reason. F***ck, did that old man Chu change the script at the last minute to trick our boss? Lu Xiaoyang, who was listening to Tu Ming's script, began to tear down his boss. Yu Hong's face darkened, but he was not as direct as Lu Xiaoyang. I don't think so. I've seen some of Tu Ming's commercials in the past. This is his style. You're making things difficult. Lu Xiaoyang began to rummage in his heart. He mumbled, I'll look through the database later to see if there's any dirt on this Tu Ming. Yu Hong's mouth twitched. This PR guy's old habits were starting to surface. Once a paparazzi, forever a paparazzi. That was a toxic profession. While everyone was complaining, Qin Guang finally put his hand on the actress's waist. Tu Ming retreated behind the camera and the lights came on. It was time to start filming. Shen Yuliang clenched his fists and looked at Qin Guang. His breathing quickened. Guanyin Bodhisattva has blessed me. I have to finish filming at least 4 of my theaters. As for the other 11 theaters, I'm sorry, but we'll have plenty of time. I'm more anxious than anyone else. Let me, Shen Yuliang, get through this first. The actress with the specially made fake belly was a little restless. She thought Brother Quan's bald head is a little too eye-catching. It's so reflective. Qin Guang, on the other hand, was thinking this girl has a good figure. Her waist is so elastic. The benefits of filming a commercial are pretty good. I'll take advantage of her. Should I get a condom commercial later and then? Of course not. Even through the monitor, one could feel the intense emotions gushing out of his body. His movements were perfect. Not only did he meet all the requirements he had mentioned, he even added some more subtle expressions and movements. Looking at the bulging veins on the back of his hand, it was obvious that he was using all his strength, but he was afraid of hurting the pregnant woman. However, that wasn't what shocked Tu Ming the most. Instead, he discovered that there was something in Qin Guang's emotions that he hadn't told Qin Guang about. Expectation. That's right. This was the feeling that every expectant father would have when facing his wife who was about to give birth. He was looking forward to the birth of his son or daughter. This was the joy of being a father, but this kind of feeling was often hidden behind worry. Even Tu Ming hadn't thought of this, or rather, even if he had, he wouldn't have mentioned it. It was too difficult, almost too harsh. Not many professional actors were willing to go through the trouble of challenging such complicated emotions. After all, as long as he could do the first 2 things, it would be a perfect performance. However, Qin Guang did it. He achieved the true meaning of perfection. She didn't know if she was hallucinating, but at that moment, the person in front of her was no longer an actor, Nor was it that annoying internet celebrity. Instead, it was an anxious, expectant father. That was scary. This was just an audition for the first scene. What was he doing? This was clearly the work of a master actor. After going through the role, he immersed himself perfectly into the role. This was the most experienced acting. How did this guy do it? Before this, she had only talked to him briefly about the script. She didn't expect anything from him. However, the moment he shouted, "Start," he became a different person, completely immersed in the role. Chu Ming's breathing quickened. This was different from Yang Shi's first time seeing Qin Guang act as Will Smith's version of Muhammad Ali. This time he was on set. He could read Qin Guang's performance in slow motion. Gradually he fell silent. He even lost track of time as he replayed the footage on the monitor over and over again. Half the speed, a quarter of the speed, an eighth of the speed, and finally a 16th of the speed. Despite Qin Guang's short 5-second scene, Chu Ming spent a total of 15 minutes trying to figure it out. However, the more he analyzed, the more terrified and happy he became. He was terrified because Qin Guang's acting skills had reached a level that made him panic. It was as if the director's existence was meaningless in front of an actor like this. His joy came from the fact that he was perhaps the first person to witness the birth of an unprecedented performance master in front of a camera. What kind of glory was this? Qin Guang had already expected Chu Ming's reaction. However, he maintained a calm expression as he chatted with the model that had a fake stomach. "Let me tell you, with your palm reading, you'll be rich in the future." "Really, Brother Almighty? You know how to read palms?" "Of course. You already know I'm called Superman Almighty. Reading palms is part of my profession." "Then, Brother Almighty, can you read my luck with the ladies?" "Ah, miss, you haven't had much luck with the ladies lately, but it looks like you're in for a disaster." The pitiful model was so frightened by Qin Guang's expression that her face turned pale. "Is that true? What should I do?" "There's a way. Miss, come to my room tonight. I'll perform a ritual for you," Qin Guang said seriously. "Sure." Qin Guang's eyes widened. "Why did you agree? Shouldn't you poke my head and say, 'Brother Almighty, are you really a bad person? Your performance is a little different from what I thought it would be.'" Chapter 742. Perhaps it was because Qin Guang didn't realize that he had become a celebrity. In fact, Qin Guang was just joking with her out of boredom. He didn't expect that she would actually agree to it. He felt a little guilty. "Ahem, I was just joking." "Don't, Brother All-Rounder, I'm really scared." "Ah, girl, can you be more dignified? You're making me scared instead." As the beauty spoke, she even moved her body closer to Qin Guang. Fortunately, Chu Ming had high requirements for props and he pursued realism. This beauty was wearing maternity clothes that covered her entire body, so she wouldn't be aroused if she moved her body closer to Qin Guang. Qin Guang silently turned his head over and felt a faint sadness in his heart. It looked like he would have to change his habit of flirting in the future. When he was still a poor loser, he would flirt with people for fun. It was to liven up the atmosphere. Things were different now. "You were joking, but people took it seriously." This was probably the worry of happiness. Seeing that Qin Guang did not speak again, the female model also realized that he wasn't taking her words seriously. Despite feeling disappointed in her heart, she did not show it on her face. She's no longer a young girl and she naturally knew how to read people's expressions. Even though he and Jin Shuiwei were no longer in the same relationship as before, who knew what was going on between them? How could a small fry understand a celebrity's relationship? "By the way, Brother All-Rounder, I don't know what happened just now. I was obviously acting, but I really felt a stomachache. Director Chu told me that I had to manage my expression well, so I practiced in front of the mirror for a long time before I got it right. Why do I feel like I'm pregnant today? My stomach hurts and I finished the scene in a daze. Actually, it was just an illusion. In the past, someone did an experiment. They blindfolded a condemned prisoner, tied his limbs to an iron bed and locked him in a dark room. Then they took an ice cube and cut his hand. Then they told him that his artery had been cut and his blood was flowing out of his wrist. In the end, this person clearly did not shed a single drop of blood, but he really died. The phenomenon that the beautiful model was talking about was because at that moment, she was completely immersed in Qin Guang's world-class acting skills. The pain she felt in her stomach wasn't real. She didn't even know what it felt like to be pregnant, let alone the pain before giving birth. But at that moment she wasn't so engrossed, but she was brought into the play by Qin Guang. As if she didn't realize it, she really imagined the pain on her own. It wasn't necessarily real, but it allowed her to display the most perfect acting skills in history. This was the strongest form of Qin Guang's world-class acting skills. I am in the play, you are by my side, also in my play. Qin Guang smiled. It's nothing. It was just an illusion. You acted very well. Is that so? I want to go to the hospital after today's shoot. No, there's really no need. On the other side, Chu Ming finally stood up from his chair, panting heavily. He strode over to Qin Guang, glancing at the female model who was chatting with Qin Guang. After a moment of silence, he gritted his teeth and lowered his head. Mr. Qin, I'm sorry. It was only a 5-second scene, but he lowered his noble head. On the other side, Yang Shi started to signal Qin Guang with his eyes. For the sake of his teacher, Yang Shi had sold all his face today. Director Chu, there's nothing to be sorry about. We were paid to do this. Do you believe me now? Since I wanted to finish the shoot in one day, of course I came prepared. Chu Ming blushed. Now I believe you even if I don't want to believe you. So, shall we officially begin? Chu Ming soon realized that he was wrong. He thought he had seen the depths of Qin Guang's abilities, but when it came to the second set of scenes, he realized how amazing he was. He had a young man ride a scooter on the set. The scooter was the focal point of Qin Guang and the female model. When Qin Guang stretched his neck and stared at the young man, his eyes were filled with nervousness and anticipation. He squinted his eyes as if he wanted to turn into a giraffe. Chu Ming and Yang Shi were the most professional directors on the set, but they were instantly captivated by Qin Guang's expression. He could even see the minute changes in people's eyesight at night. The female model in Qin Guang's arms was too good. She was holding on to Qin Guang, enduring the pain. She even remembered to look in Qin Guang's direction at the young man on the scooter. The performance of these two people was too good. This was something that was added to the green screen in post-production. Even the most professional actors in the country would be confused when they first came into contact with this kind of green screen. But did the two of you take the wrong medicine? How can you pass the first line like that? If my eyes didn't tell me that it really was a scooter, I would have mistaken that man for a taxi. As a director, what kind of actor did you like the most? It was the kind where if you gave him a request, not only would he be able to perfectly meet your standards, but he would also be able to bring others to perform exceptionally well and drag others into the play. Unfortunately, they wouldn't overdo it. Everything they did was exactly what you needed. Not only would they not disrupt your original plan, but they would also take into account things that you hadn't considered. When the second scooter passed by, everyone on set was momentarily hallucinating. They really did mistake the young man for a taxi. Invisibly, Qin Guang's world-class acting seemed to have transformed into an absolute domain. The range it covered grew larger and larger, and his influence on the people around him grew stronger and stronger. This time, Chu Ming didn't waste another minute and immediately moved on to the last scene. Perfect. Too perfect. Beyond perfect. With a loud crack, Chu Ming stood up with a flushed face. How was it? Mr. Chu, Qin Guang didn't disappoint you, did he? Yang Shi's face was full of smiles. The better Qin Guang performed, the more confidence he had in women. He really wanted to see Qin Guang, who everyone thought was the weakest, become the highlight of the movie. He wanted to see how the critics who criticized Qin Guang and Big Beard would react. Chu Ming chuckled. What are you talking about? How could I be disappointed? To be able to work with him is like burning incense for 8 lifetimes, alright? Xin Yuliang almost didn't want to ridicule him anymore. You change your attitude as fast as flipping a book. Those who knew you were Director Chu, but those who didn't know you thought you were a traitor in ancient times. Chapter 743. Around noon they had already shot the 4th commercial out of the 12. Qin Guang performed perfectly the entire time. He was always able to get into character in a second. Whatever Chu Ming wanted, he could give it to him. Chu Ming was the first to make a mistake. The other actors in the last 8 commercials didn't even talk about their scenes. That wasn't all, but even the props were off. Chu Ming was in an awkward position. This is really unexpected. Qin Guang patted him on the shoulder and said, Director Chu, shall we go for lunch first then? Time is of the essence, don't screw up. I won't. Qin Guang and Xin Yuliang left for lunch with the other 11 companies. Yangshi stayed behind to help Chu Ming. When everyone was gone, Yangshi wanted to say something but Chu Ming waved him off. Yangshi, shut up. I'm embarrassed enough today, please let me go. What the hell, where did he learn his acting skills from? Could it be that this person is really born with knowledge? Yangshi scratched his head as he looked at his teacher. Actually, he wasn't too sure what happened to Chen Guang. I don't know either. Maybe big bro Chen Guang is self-taught? Do you know what I want to say right now? Bastard. I think so too. Yangshi chuckled. They busied themselves for the whole afternoon. Around 5 p.m., all 12 commercials with Chen Guang were finished. Chu Ming and the rest of the crew were in a daze until the announcement that they were done. During the day, Chen Guang, who was supposed to be a rookie, had become the leader of the crew. This kind of efficiency was unprecedented in the entire advertising industry, and it seemed that there wouldn't be anyone who could surpass it for a while. Take care, Chen Guang. Xin Yuliang's face nearly cracked from smiling as he waved his hand at Chen Guang's car. The people in charge of the other 11 companies weren't any better. There were some words that they didn't say. According to the current situation, Chen Guang's fame would continue to soar as long as nothing unexpected happened. Previously, when he signed the contract, it seemed like the endorsement contract of 150 million yuan from 12 companies was a gift to him. Now that they thought about it, it was a huge bargain. What a scary guy. I've been in his shoes a few times. Chu Ming said with a sigh. Yangshi also nodded his head. I've always felt that Chen Guangji has a sort of spirit formation on him. Anyone who is enveloped by his spirit formation will involuntarily become the character they want to become. That day, the entire advertising company's outlook on life had been flipped upside down. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes and participated in it, who would have thought there was really someone in this world who could shoot 12 commercials in one day? When they first started filming the online car rental commercial, everyone was shocked and impressed by Chen Guang's acting skills. They were also conquered by his strange ability to bring others into the character. But as the filming went on, things became stranger and scarier. Especially after a period of intense preparation in the afternoon, the prop team finally got serious and finished what they should have done in the morning. As for the participants of the other commercials, whether they were relatively low-level models or other celebrities, who wouldn't be touched after watching the fairy one after another for a whole morning. At noon, Chen Guang and the others went for lunch. None of them dared to leave the set. They stayed and tugged at Chu Ming and Yangshi, trying to figure out their roles. When they returned to work in the afternoon, everyone was more professional than they had been in the morning. They were in a more perfect state. The result of working together was that the efficiency in the afternoon was even higher than in the morning. If Chen Guang's performance in the morning was like a fairy floating in the air, then in the afternoon when they watched Chen Guang's performance, it was like he had flown into outer space. The higher the efficiency of the others, the more it showed how scary he was. It seemed like he didn't need time to immerse himself in the character. The others beside him could also drag him in for a second. Originally, the female model was known to be the worst at acting and had a cancer of awkwardness, but in the end she was still brought into the character in an instant. He was a bottomless pit with no limit. After the first scene, it was time for the next one. Just a second ago, Chen Guang was still discussing palm reading with a girl, but in the next second he was already immersed in his character. He didn't even take a breather in between. The commercials were shot one after another. The efficiency was so high that Chu Ming almost couldn't keep up. In the end, he didn't even bother to look at the results. He just followed the preset camera and walked one round. Then he said, "Pass." As he watched Chen Guang's car disappear into the distance, Yangshi waved his hand. Suddenly, he snapped back to reality. "Hey, I haven't gotten in yet." With a yelp, Yangshi ran after him. "Wait for me." He was brought into the character by Chen Guang. Originally, he had been following Chen Guang around to guide him, but after an entire afternoon of work, he felt like he had returned to his old school days. He treated himself as Chu Ming's student, and followed behind him to help him out. Meanwhile, at the National Gallery of Art, although there were still 2 hours until the piano performance, the crowd outside had started to grow. There were scalpers and there were ordinary audiences. No matter how good the ticketing system was, it couldn't stop the enthusiasm of the scalpers. People died for money and birds died for food. Outside the gallery there were people selling toys, glow sticks and snacks. Their shouts rose and fell and the place was bustling with noise. Most of the people who came to the piano performance were Qin Guang's fans, especially the famous bald group. Yes, that's right, the poor bald leader was once again kidnapped by his good friends, the Anti-Light Alliance members. Sometimes he felt sad. He was the most senior anti-fan of Qin Guang, but when he thought about it, he was always the one who supported Qin Guang's activities. The bald leader raised his head and looked at the clouds in the sky. If I tell others now that I'm actually a Qin Guang anti-fan, no one would believe me. Hey, President Baldy. I'm also Brother Almighty's hardcore fan. Everyone in our class admires you very much. Can we take a picture together? There it goes again. That familiar tone. Forget it, seeing that you're cute and obedient, I'll make a V sign with my hand. Hey Brother Baldy, I'm sorry, I have to stand a little further away. Brother Almighty said that you're very lecherous and I already have a boyfriend. The smile on the president's face froze. After the photo, the girls scattered like birds and beasts. They were attracted by the handsome foreign guys on the other side. They didn't expect that Qin Guang had already embarked on the international path, and his fan base had spread all over the world. The group of girls went over to ask and found out that these handsome foreign guys were actually students from a foreign pilot school. They had just graduated and came to China for a vacation. They heard that the owner of the association's Heroes Medal who turned the tide was actually going to have a piano performance, so they immediately came over to watch the fun. Wu Tong was wearing casual clothes and mixed in with the crowd. She walked around aimlessly and from time to time she whispered into her collar. She also listened to the constant reports from her subordinates through her earphones. She had a complete grasp of the situation nearby. Although everything seemed so calm as a top police officer in China and an outstanding student of Shun's special training camp, her intuition told her that things weren't so simple. She tried her best to not be so conspicuous. Her sharp eyes scanned the crowd, trying to find every suspicious person, especially foreigners who were in her range of surveillance. Apart from Wu Tong, the Guangdong Police Headquarters had recently expanded more than 10 non-staff personnel. They were experts with internal strength and they were also disguised as ordinary people. They served as hidden sentries in the crowd. In the tall buildings near the National Gallery of Art, there were more than 30 snipers densely packed together. There were also many police elites mixed in with the staff of the Gallery of Art. In a sense, this was probably the public performance with the highest level of security in China in the past 10 years. Wu Tong gritted her teeth. I don't believe that there will be any trouble like this. At around 6:30, Qin Guang and the others arrived first. The people lining up outside to enter the venue had already filled the entire square. Qin Guang first met with the staff of the major live broadcast platforms and Tomato TV, and they exchanged a few simple greetings. Xiao Tsong didn't come today. It was said that he was recently working on a show called Hi Goddess. He was so busy with his online variety show. God knows if he was busy with proper business or doing something shameless with his internet celebrity beauties. The official performance would start at 8 p.m. Before that, Qin Guang was prepared to meet the 5 masters that Tianguang Brokerage had spent a lot of money to invite. It was Qin Guang's first time meeting them. In order to invite these 5 masters, Tianguang Brokerage had spent a total of $1.2 million, which was almost half of the total investment for the piano performance. In the words of the others in the company, this was purely burning money. With Brother Allrounder's fame as a foundation and so many resources piled up in the early stage, there was no need to worry about ratings and attention. It was really not worth it to spend at least $200,000 per person on these arrogant so-called masters. Although these masters were famous in the piano industry on a global scale in the minds of ordinary people, they actually weren't that famous. It really didn't help with the box office and attention. Although art had no boundaries, people who paid attention to art had boundaries. Everyone could listen to piano music and there were countless people who could play it, but how to play it was considered good was a matter of the benevolent and the wise. There was a saying among music aficionados, listen to music under $10,000. This sounded ridiculous, but it wasn't without reason. The same principle applied to the art of piano. People who didn't know the art heard a classic pop song. No matter how many mistakes they made during the performance, ordinary people couldn't hear it at all. They could only shout along, it's good, it's really good. But if it was a great master, his perfect performance of a prime minister's eccentric tune for a minority audience would also give people a good scolding. What the heck was he playing? Because they didn't understand, they only knew how to judge based on their feelings. But without training, their feelings were often biased and inaccurate. The result of this phenomenon was that real masters, because they were immersed in research, they didn't have time to promote themselves. They really weren't famous among ordinary people. But in the eyes of people who were in the industry, it was different. It was because they knew the art that they could understand the power of these masters. People standing outside the circle didn't really understand, but people standing inside the circle could see through the fog and see the achievements of the masters. Qin Guang didn't hesitate to spend a lot of money to invite 5 masters. In the eyes of other people in Tianguang brokerage, it was too extravagant, and it didn't help the company's profits. But their objections were useless. The boss had a big butt, so the boss had the final say. Chief Qin, I don't understand, I really don't understand, why do you have to find them? You don't know how difficult it is to deal with these 5 people. At first, I coaxed them to come and they thought we were going to hold a special concert for them, so they talked to me nicely. But then they heard that each of them only had time for 2 songs and the rest of the time was yours, and they immediately fell out with me. Fang Tianyu followed beside Qin Guang, desperately pouring out his grievances. He couldn't help but feel wronged. In the beginning, these masters didn't actually offer more than $200,000, and each of them didn't even offer $100,000. But once they realized that they had become the background, these people immediately shook their heads like a rattle drum, and those with bad tempers were ready to leave. Of course, masters had their reservations. Even if they didn't want to earn money, they couldn't lower themselves to be the background of others. In the end, Fang Tianyu had no choice but to raise the price crazily, and in the end, each person offered more than $200,000. Then one by one he persuaded them with kind words, and he took out videos of Qin Guang's previous performances, saying that this concert was more of an exchange and learning experience, and this group of people finally relented after some discussion. As the marketing manager, something that could have been settled with $500,000 to $600,000 became $2 million in his own hands. This was his mistake at work, and he felt guilty for making the company spend too much money. Qin Guang ignored his grievances. How can I tell you that I invited these masters to come to slap their faces? With their status in the industry, those who understand will naturally understand. They came all the way here to be slapped in the face by me, and I feel that paying each of them $200,000 is not a loss. That's right, this is a face-slapping fee. Why is it that after playing the piano so many times in public, the production of faith in the piano world still hasn't increased? Qin Guang has actually been thinking about this question. The reason is actually not complicated. There is no first place in literature and there is no second place in martial arts. The level of playing the piano is a particularly subjective matter. It is really a bit difficult to convince others in playing the piano. The so-called masters are all accumulated over time with gorgeous performances again and again, or have extremely high attainments in the arts. They teach people their skills and they have students all over the world so that they can slowly be recognized by the world. At the very least, they should at least win a few international awards. It is ridiculous to want to be recognized by others with just a few public performances. It is useless no matter how beautiful and gorgeous you play. Therefore, this time Qin Guang did not hesitate to invite 5 publicly recognized masters, just to have a reference for his performance so that others will be convinced. Little Fang Tianyu, I can't explain the reason behind this to you, but I have my reasons for doing this. In the end, Qin Guang still comforted Fang Tianyu. Chapter 744. Fang Tianyu sighed again. Sigh, but they're too expensive. All of our tickets have been sold out and our total income is only about 7 million. That means that all of our ticket income has been spent on these people. If not for the sponsorship from a few companies, we would have lost money this time. Their asking price is too high. 2 songs, $200,000. Oh my god. That's equivalent to $100,000 per song. Qin Guang smiled mysteriously. Little Fang, this is called an investment. Do you understand? Only with investment can there be gains. As long as I get what I want, money is just a worldly possession. Furthermore, with their status in the industry, they might not even be able to get such a price if they were to hold a special concert. But because they have so little time, they play so few songs. No matter what, in the eyes of others, they will form the impression that I'm the leader and they're the support. This is equivalent to me using $2 million to buy a chance to rise up and stand side by side with them. What the professionals will think is none of our business, but in the hearts and eyes of ordinary people, first, there will be people who will explain to them who these 5 masters are and what they have achieved in the past. It doesn't matter if you don't understand as long as you know this. Then, in the hearts of those who are taught about it, I, Qin Guang, will have the same status as these 5 masters. They are sacrificing their own reputation to make wedding clothes for me. It's worth this price. I can't even begin to describe how much time and energy it will save me. Qin Guang and Feng Tianyu's analysis made sense. Actually, the 5 masters also understood this logic. Under normal circumstances, they would definitely be at a disadvantage, but in the face of the temptation of 200,000 USD, not many people could resist it. Feng Tianyu was enlightened. When he looked at Qin Guang again, his gaze was filled with worship. As expected of the self-reliant all-rounder who made himself popular. So strong. He was right. Although he didn't know what he wanted fame and status in the piano world for, his logic was valid. This was a very common way of hyping up. Oh, I understand. Chief Qin, you played with these 5 masters once. In the hearts of ordinary people, you'll be on the same level as them. Feng Tianyu had a look of sudden realization. Qin Guang was still smiling mysteriously. Feng Tianyu thought he understood, but in fact he still didn't. He thought that what he wanted was to be on the same level as the 5 masters in the hearts of ordinary people, but what he really wanted to conquer was not just ordinary people. After today, in everyone's hearts, he would be the man with the best piano-playing skills in the world. In the lounge in front of Qin Guang, 5 masters from all over the world were chatting. It was rare for them to gather face to face, so naturally they would talk about piano. Raven Hodder from Austria was the oldest. Compared to the other 4, he was almost 60 years old and could be considered a person from the previous generation. His personality was also relatively more dogmatic. What moved him, apart from the 200,000 USD, was more enticing to Feng Tianyu because of Pavlovsky's posthumous piano piece on the center of the stage. He didn't sit with the other 4. Instead, he leaned on the guardrail and looked at the stage through the glass. He muttered, "If I didn't want to try Pavlovsky's Nightingale, I wouldn't have taken a 16-hour flight from Vienna to here." The Nightingale, in Raven Hodder's mouth, was the name that Pavlovsky had given to the last piano he had ever made. It had a beautiful meaning, symbolizing that this black piano could produce the most beautiful and crisp music. "Mr. Hodder, I'm sorry that I haven't learned German. What did you say just now?" An elegant blonde middle-aged man in a white suit turned his head and asked with a smile. This was Pires from Corsica, France. "Pires," I said, "look at those people down there. How many of them look like they really understand music? When I think about the fact that I have to play the piano in front of these people, I feel very sad and sad. When I think about a masterpiece like Nightingale, it was bought by a rich Chinese as soon as it came out. The first time it was played in public was in such an occasion that tarnished music. I feel sad for the deceased Pavlovsky." Raven Hodder repeated it aloud in English. Pires and the other 3 people smiled bitterly together. "What can we do about it? Who told the Chinese to have so much money?" A middle-aged woman said. She was Cristina from Portugal, the most famous female piano master in the world. "Yeah, not only is he rich, but he's also very stupid." Pires laughed again. "And he's also very shameless." Another person also ridiculed. Raven Hodder slightly pressed his hand down and said, "Okay, you guys control your emotions a little. After all, we took someone else's money and it's a lot of money. I'm not joking. This young man named Reichin really made me see the Chinese in a new light. What do you think is going on in his head? He wants to be famous. For a vain person, to be able to perform with us on the same stage is probably as precious as a luxury in his mind. In addition, didn't you guys notice that the security level of our public performance today is too high? I really wouldn't have noticed if you didn't mention it. It's almost time for the presidential visit. So, this Reichin is probably the descendant of a very noble and powerful person in China." These words all reached the ears of Qin Guang, who had already opened the door a crack but was not in a hurry to enter. Frankly speaking, he was very unhappy. He had thought that these masters who were invited as human backdrops would have a problem with him, but he did not expect these people to not give him face and actually treat him as a stupid rich fool. Damn, this is too much. I have to go and talk to them. Feng Tianyu, who was next to him, had a sullen expression and wanted to push the door in front of Qin Guang. However, Qin Guang held him down. You better forget it. If you fall out with these people now, what if they quit? But we have a contract. Feng Tianyu said blankly. Qin Guang shook his head. I don't care about the contract. Even if they didn't break it, it would be a great loss for me if their mood was affected because of the quarrel before the performance and they couldn't perform well. He didn't say anything else. Old Feng, go and do something else. Leave this to me. Qin Guang rolled his eyes and already had an idea in his mind. It seemed that these 5 people were very interested in the Nightingale piano left behind by Pavlovsky. Since that was the case, he would make use of this Nightingale, and swore to bring out their most perfect performance so that these people would not look down on him and only think of fooling around. After making up his mind, he pushed the door open and entered with a smile on his face. Greetings, masters. I am Qin Guang, also known as Right Qin. I have been busy with trivial matters recently, and only today did I have the chance to officially meet with masters. I am truly sorry. He smiled brightly. Those who knew him well knew that the brighter he smiled, the more ruthless he would be when he slapped others in the face. The faces of Raven Horde and the others stiffened. They were afraid that their words had been heard by Qin Guang. They only relaxed when they saw the smile on his face. Hello, Mr. Qin. I have long heard that China is full of talents. We have seen a lot of them in the past 2 days. You really live up to your name. Although these people had already looked down on Qin Guang to the extreme in their hearts, Raven Hodder could be considered as a person of virtue and prestige in the piano world. His cultivation wasn't bad, so he could still put up a good front. The others were younger and their attitude did not change for a while. When they looked at Qin Guang, their expressions were slightly stiff. They did not even think of standing up when their money came in. The younger ones were, after all, more arrogant. Although everyone loved US dollars and they could not resist the temptation of 200,000 US dollars, they still felt wronged when they held the money in their hands. Is that so? Thank you for your compliment, Mr. Horde. I have some interest and attainments in the piano. It is my honor to be able to perform with all of you on the same stage. Qin Guang switched to Austrian German again and started chatting with Raven Horde. Raven Horde was shocked when he heard his authentic Austrian German. It was not rare for Chinese to know German, but it was rare for Chinese to know Austrian German and speak with a strong Vienna accent. Mr. Qin, Qin Guang smiled and said in English, I used to have a friend. He is a very good friend of mine. He is very talented in music. Later he went to Austria to study and I often called him on the phone. That's how I learned Austrian, which is your German, Mr. Horde. Raven Horde's eyes widened. Why does this sound so sci-fi to me? A friend in Austria can talk on the phone and learn Austrian German? In any case, Qin Guang's words had brought the two of them closer. Raven Horde began to feel apologetic. After all, he was the one who took advantage of Qin Guang. What he did just now seemed to be a little too disrespectful to Qin Guang. On the other side, Pires did not understand what Qin Guang and Raven Horde were talking about. Instead, he turned his head sideways and said, Mr. Qin, I am friends with some well-known piano artists in your country. I have been thinking about one thing. You are a businessman and your company is very large. You are not short of money. Why don't you consider inviting famous artists like Mr. Li or Mr. Lang to organize this performance instead of choosing to do it yourself? It doesn't seem like you can get enough profit, right? The subtext of Pires' words was very disrespectful. It was obvious that he was saying, Qin Guang, you are a businessman and a tycoon, but don't meddle in the arts when you have nothing better to do. Christina also crossed her legs. Mr. Qin, Mr. Bybrovsky is very respected in the piano industry. This Nightingale is also one of his greatest achievements. He once wrote in his autobiography that after making the Nightingale, he could no longer make a better piano. For such a top-notch piano, if you use the wrong way of playing it, it is possible that it will lose its original tone. Chapter 745. Qin Guang crossed his arms and looked at the two of them, still smiling. Mr. Pires from France, what I just said to Mr. Holland is that I think I have some attainments in the piano, so I don't think it'll be difficult for me to perform with you on the same stage. Without waiting for Pires to reply, he turned to Christina and switched to Portuguese. Miss Christina, I admire your straightforwardness. It sounds to me like you're saying that letting someone like you play the piano is a waste of God's gift, don't you think so? Oh, Mr. Chen, I was just joking. Christina had heard that Chinese people were very reserved and polite, so she also learned from the Chinese style and said some sarcastic words. Who would have thought that Qin Guang seemed to be different from the Chinese people she had imagined? He actually exposed her directly and now it was awkward. Mr. Chen, were you speaking French just now? At this time Perez suddenly interrupted. Christina was also stunned at first, but then she also realized that she seemed to have been led into the ditch by Qin Guang, and started speaking Portuguese. She wondered, you know Portuguese too? Qin Guang nodded. Yes, French and Portuguese. Is that strange? Compared to Chinese, your language is much easier to learn. How is that possible? Everyone exclaimed in unison. What's impossible about it? Have two friends. One of them doesn't like to bathe and letting him bathe is more uncomfortable than killing him, so he went to France. I also have a friend who is a fan of Cristiano Ronaldo and he went to Portugal. So you often talk to them and then you learned French and Portuguese. Raven Holland, who was at the side, had already seen through his behavior. Qin Guang smiled. Yes, I think you might not have seen my press conference about DL199333 flight yesterday. At that press conference I publicly said that no matter what it is, as long as I want to learn it, as long as I put in a little effort, I can learn it. Moreover, as long as I learn it, I must be at the top level in the world, including the piano. You might be wrong about one thing. You think that I want to create hype and become a master of fake hype. That's why I need the 5 of you to serve as a foil. That's why I spent so much money to invite the 5 of you. Isn't that so? I've seen the press conference you mentioned and one of my students is also on the plane. He will also come to this concert today. He once told me about your amazing performance on the plane, but I think that flying a plane and playing the piano have nothing to do with each other. I've also seen your previous public performances and I can't deny that Mr. Chen does have some fancy skills, but that doesn't mean that you have deep attainments. Piano is an art and it needs to be settled. It's not to find a beautiful name for yourself and put on a precious nightingale. At this time the piano master from the United States, who had not spoken much, spoke. What a coincidence, he happened to be the tutor of the young musician from the Leiden Academy of Music that Qin Guang met on the plane. What you said is not without reason. It is precisely because this is art that it is more difficult to quantify, but it doesn't matter, I have my ways. How about this? In order to make today's public performance more exciting, I have just made a decision. After today's performance, I will give the original sound source of the public performance to you. You can find other famous piano masters to comment on it, or you can take it to the major music academies and let people listen to it blindly. It doesn't matter. If I really am not qualified to be compared to you, then I will buy the nightingale and give it to one of you. I will give it to whoever plays the best tonight. How about that? Although the art of piano is very subjective, if the object of comparison is magnified to the whole world, it should have a certain degree of persuasiveness, right? When the nightingale was first made, it was estimated to be worth more than $3 million. Now that Bybrovsky had passed away many years ago, considering the commemorative significance of it being out of print, its value should at least double, reaching a shocking amount of $6 million. Even though the 5 masters present were not poor, when they heard Qin Guang's words they were still shocked. What's more, a treasure like the nightingale was priceless. Even if you had the money you might not be able to buy it. You must be joking, right? Ravenhord's eyes widened. Although he already had several Steinway pianos that were out of print, Bybrovsky's posthumous Nightingale was still a treasure that he dreamed of. He simply could not resist this terrible temptation. Every artist who loved the piano could not refuse a masterpiece like the Nightingale. It could even be said that owning this piano could even bring his personal achievements to a higher level. He did not mind adding such a paragraph to his personal Wikipedia description in the future. Owner of Bybrovsky's posthumous Nightingale. The other 4 people were not much better. This was too ridiculous. This was not a small gift. This was a nightingale that was worth $6 million. Seeing that his goal had been achieved, Qin Guang smiled. Everyone, do I look like I'm joking? Since I'm willing to spend $2 million to invite all of you here, you should be able to understand one thing. Money to me is really nothing. After saying that, he turned around and left. The pleasure of showing off at zero cost was really refreshing. Don't be fooled by his exaggerated words, in fact he was just making things up. He had no idea who the owner of this nightingale was. nor had he ever come into contact with them. Since they had spent a lot of money to buy this nightingale, and carefully transported it over thousands of miles on a cruise ship, they obviously did not lack money. To buy this kind of treasure, money was one aspect. Even if they had the money, they might not be willing to sell it. On one hand, he was unhappy that these people looked down on him because he was stupid. On the other hand, since they all thought that he was stupid because he was rich, then he would let them see what real money was like. Didn't you all look down on me? If you have the ability, then show me some real ability. Make me kneel before you wholeheartedly, then I will give you the nightingale. Unfortunately, no matter how happy, excited you are, it is useless. Because in the end you will definitely kneel at my feet. I'm just letting you have fun. Do you really think that I have a hole in my brain to give away something that is worth millions of US dollars? He first had an unpleasant meeting with the few of them. Looking at the time, it was only 6:30 p.m. And Qin Guang heard that Wu Tong was eating a boxed lunch in the command vehicle. Since Qin Guang also hadn't eaten dinner yet, he went to the backstage and found a wig to wear before putting on his mask and ran out. Sister Wu Tong had worked so hard, he should go and comfort her. At the same time, he could also see if he could do some shameful things in the command car. He ran to the door of the command car in the parking lot with his neck hunched and then knocked on it twice. Wu Tong, who was eating inside, thought that there was an emergency and opened the door with a box of food in her mouth. She said in a muffled voice, "What's the matter?" Before she could finish speaking, she spat out all the food in her mouth. The pear blossoms in the storm shot straight at Qin Guang's face. Old Master Guang could not dodge in time and was hit in the face. Silently raising his hand to wipe his face, Qin Guang raised his head in distress. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Wu Tong rolled her eyes at him. "You're asking me? When did you start playing 2D cosplay? Do you think you're not famous enough? Are you planning to enter 2D? Do you want to do a house dance on Bilibili? Huh. I don't really understand what you're talking about." Qin Guang was still in a daze. Wu Tong pulled him in first, then took out her phone and took a picture for him. "See for yourself." Now he knew why Wu Tong had laughed out loud. First of all, although the wig was black, it was very fluffy and looked like the hairstyle of the main character in an anime. Secondly, his mask was a little indecent. There was a big mouth drawn on his mouth and he looked like the main character in Tokyo Ghoul Kaneki Ken. Accident, it's a complete accident. Do you have more boxed lunches? Can you give me one? Qin Guang took off his mask and wig and looked around. He could not help but feel a little disappointed. There were 3 other police officers in the command car other than Wu Tong. Seemed like he could not do the shameful things anymore. Right, what's the situation outside? Are there any signs of suspicious people? As he ate, Qin Guang asked about the matter at hand. Wu Tong frowned slightly and shook her head. "I'm worried about this. There's not a single suspicious person, but I can't help but feel uneasy. We've confirmed the identities of all the foreigners, and all of them have detailed immigration records. We've also communicated with the International Intelligence Organization, and there's no problem with their identities." "What about the Chinese? How do we confirm the Chinese? There are so many people and we can only strengthen the security checks when the audience enters. Didn't you see your fans complaining? They said that watching a piano concert is like entering the Great Hall of the People. The procedures are so complicated. Now that we've entered early, I think we'll have to wait until 7:50 before everyone can enter." Wu Tong sighed. "It's okay. Safety first. We can't be too careful." As the two were chatting, the police officer in charge of intelligence suddenly turned around and said loudly, "Bureau Chief, we just received news." Wu Tong put down the lunchbox. "What?" The intelligence officer swallowed his saliva. "Our colleagues in the Security Bureau have just received news that the Broken is trying to negotiate with them." "What did the Broken say?" "They want us to provide them with Xue Lin's whereabouts. Otherwise, they will definitely launch a suicide attack in Beijing today." Wu Tong's brows furrowed even more. "Nothing else?" "No, our colleagues from the Security Bureau planned to deal with them, but we didn't receive any reply to the message we sent. They are very careful. After sending a message, there was no more movement. Our anti-tracking also failed." "A suicide attack? Other than us, there's a celebrity meeting in Dongqing District today, and a shopping mall in Haiding District is having its opening ceremony. Other regular locations like cinemas are operating normally, but attacking those targets won't affect us too much. If they really want to do it, I'm afraid they'll do it directly. Their target should still be us. Wu Tong sighed. I really can't rest for a second. Qin Guang also finished his lunch quickly and stood up with her. Let's go and see what's going on. Wu Tong pushed him. Save it. You're not a secret agent. I don't want you to be a hindrance. Furthermore, it's all your fans outside. If someone recognizes you, it'll be a lot of trouble. What do you mean by hindrance? I'm the chief instructor of Shun's special training camp. Even if you see me, you have to call me teacher. Sco. Who knows, I might be lucky. An ordinary person like you won't understand my luck. Screw you, ordinary person. Although Wu Tong was reluctant, she didn't reject Qin Guang's company. After all, he was wearing a mask with a big mouth. Coupled with his wig, the probability of being recognized wasn't high. Chapter 746. I don't think you guys should focus all your energy on foreigners. Qin Guang and Wu Tong, who were dressed as anime characters, walked hand in hand in the crowd, looking like a young couple. Although Wu Tong was the director of the Beijing branch bureau, she had been training all year round. Although she was already 25 or 26 years old, she looked no different from a 16-year-old girl. It didn't feel strange for her to act as a couple with Qin Guang. It's easy for you to say that. Not all of us are Sun Wukong or have the fiery eyes of truth. There are at least 10,000 people here. Who can find a suspicious person among so many Huaxia people? Wu Tong had a sweet smile on her face. It was hard to tell if she was really immersed in the scene of the two pretending to be a couple. Don't we have the help of the internal strength martial artists from the Guangding General Bureau? Are they useless? Qin Guang asked. Wu Tong nodded. You're right. Secret agents are secret agents and martial artists are martial artists. Although those newly recruited internal strength martial artists have unique skills, they might not be as good as the well-trained secret agents when it comes to gathering intelligence. Do you know how many courses we have to learn? Criminal psychology is the most basic, and there are more than 10 subjects such as behavior analysis, microexpression management, and so on. Learning is not the end. How can we use this knowledge in actual combat? We have to slowly accumulate rich experience. It's not as easy as you think. Sounds very profound. Of course. Otherwise, do you think it's so easy for me to be the director? Did you really rely on your connections to get here? Wu Tong said in a low voice while pinching Qin Guang's waist intimately. Hey, don't take advantage of me. Nonsense. How is this taking advantage of me? You're my man now. It's natural for me to pinch you. Wu Tong smiled like a flower. Even Qin Guang couldn't tell if she was acting for a mission or really enjoying the unique interaction between the two of them. Qin Guang was getting more and more famous now, and he was no longer as fearless as he was in the past. This kind of interaction would become more and more difficult in the future. Perhaps one day Qin Guang would have to completely hide himself like other celebrities. If he wanted to go out, he would have to be fully armed. When meeting people, he would have to be sneaky like a thief. If it wasn't for the special situation today, Wu Tong might really be immersed in it. Although Qin Guang was fooling around with her, his mind was also very sharp. This was his performance, and he was relying on today to increase the production of the piano world's faith value. He didn't want to fail here. More importantly, those who came to support him today were people who acknowledged him the most. Most of them had faith in him, perhaps because of the piano or perhaps because of Qin Guang's other skills. But there was no doubt that most of them were his fans. Just when Qin Guang was thinking about this, he suddenly realized that he still had this trick. Wait, let's go to that floor. Qin Guang pointed to the building at the edge of the stadium. Wu Tong looked at her watch. It's almost 7 o'clock. You should be on stage soon, right? Don't tell me you don't want to let go of this little time? Hey, be serious. Today is not the time to play with you. We haven't finished our business yet. Qin Guang stared. What are you thinking about? What do you think I'm thinking about? Really, don't be serious. You called me to the roof at this time. I don't believe that you don't have some strange ideas in your mind. Wu Tong looked as if she had already seen through him. Qin Guang's mouth opened wide, forming an O shape. What you said makes so much sense. I didn't think of it myself. See, I really have to discipline you. You're not young anymore. Now you're the head of the Guangding General Administration. You really can't be like this anymore. Wu Tong's motherly nature erupted. She preached. Alright, stop talking nonsense. Come with me. However, Qin Guang didn't want to let her perform any further, so he carried her in his arms and ran towards the nearby building. Wu Tong wanted to struggle at first, but she was afraid of being too conspicuous in the crowd. She simply let him be. However, she had already made up her mind that she would teach her lecherous little brother a lesson later. At the very least, she had to let him know that now was the time to get down to business and not think about those inappropriate things all day long. Rushing to the bottom of the building, Qin Guang put Wu Tong down. Wu Tong was about to scold him, but Qin Guang blocked her mouth first. Wait, Sister Wu Tong, don't be in a hurry to scold me. You'll understand later. Understand what? Go to the roof first. I have a big surprise for you. Stop fooling around. I'm really not fooling around. Do you think I'm someone who would joke around with people's lives? I have a way to find those people. I might not be able to catch all of them, but at least I can find a few. Impossible. Here we go again. In the past, many people told me that it was impossible, and then they all made a bet with me. Are you going to bet too? No bet. Why? I don't know why, but I feel that you have bad intentions. Forget it, I'll believe you this once. But if you really don't give me an explanation, I'll be angry. Don't worry, Qin Guang said confidently. It was also because of his bright mind that he thought of the heavenly Holy Grail's thread had such an unorthodox use. At this time his confidence was about to explode. Oh my, why am I so quick-witted? It couldn't be helped. After all, he was a man chosen by the heavenly Holy Grail. It was necessary for him to have an extraordinary mind. Although Wu Tong was still skeptical, seeing that he was serious, she decided to believe him this once. She told the walkie-talkie that she would be leaving for a while and asked the others to strengthen the patrol. Then she followed Qin Guang up to the roof. The two of them stood on the roof and looked far ahead. The building was on the side of the square and they could see everyone at a glance. Alright, stop keeping me in suspense. Hurry up. Wu Tong said as she took out a telescope from her pocket. You even brought this thing? Alright, I'll start pointing out suspicious people one by one. But don't be in a hurry to act. Let's narrow down the scope first and then secretly make arrangements. Let's try to get everything done in one go. Qin Guang rubbed his palms and began to secretly size up the people below. The square was a little big and there were a lot of people. But fortunately he had amazing eyesight thanks to the world of darts and the world of pilots. As far as the eye could see, he really did quickly find a few people who had completely empty heads. They did not provide a single cent of faith points. This, and this. Do you see that? It's that young man in green with a black sling bag and that one in a black and white t-shirt. How can you see them so clearly from so far away? Don't worry about those details. Remember all of them. If you can't remember them, just read them into the walkie-talkie and get your colleagues in the command vehicle to cooperate. The speed at which Qin Guang pointed out people was getting faster and faster. Although Wu Tong did not know how he was doing it, she decided to trust him. She spoke the names of the people he pointed out into the walkie-talkie at the same time. On the other hand, the people in the command vehicle adjusted the high-definition surveillance cameras around the square and singled out the suspicious people one by one. Next, Qin Guang quickly pointed out more than 20 people in less than 20 seconds. Among the nearly 10,000 people below, most of them had more or less faith points. Even if they were extremely weak, they still existed. Don't tell me you're just guessing blindly? Also, why are all the people you pointed out Chinese faces? When he finally said that there were no more, Wu Tong turned off the walkie-talkie and asked skeptically. What nonsense are you talking about? Intuition, my ass. Think about it. The broken world has suffered so many losses in Beijing. Since they want to make a big operation this time, they have to make sure nothing goes wrong. Of course, they have to find people with Chinese faces. Don't you think so? How can you not understand such a simple logic? Qin Guang said resolutely. Wu Tong was tired of being ridiculed by him. Of course I understand. I just don't believe what makes you so sure. I'm willing to bet that there's something wrong with at least half of them. Why do you only know how to gamble? Are you the African gambling king? Let's go and observe the situation. I still have to make arrangements for the arrest. Wu Tong immediately turned around and pulled him downstairs. She was afraid that this guy would suddenly want to do something extra on the rooftop. She did not expect Qin Guang to run faster than her. I have to make a trip to the art gallery as well. I've already let 1,000 people in and I don't know how many suspicious people have already entered. Also, I've already broken away from Africa and Europe. Just treat it as a blind guess. It doesn't matter. When the people are arrested, you'll naturally understand how powerful I am. When the two returned to the plaza, they were not in a hurry to make the arrest. Qin Guang and Wu Tong quietly approached the two targets that they had chosen earlier. They planned to probe around and confirm who they were. The two of them seemed to have tickets as well. However, they were not in a hurry to queue up to enter. Instead, they looked around the crowd. They walked in front of the stalls and asked around. From time to time they would buy some snacks. They were two young men. One of them was dressed like a sissy, while the other was quite manly. Although they were said to be two men, their actions were so intimate that it was a little... what? Qin Guang and Wu Tong were not in a hurry to get too close. Instead, they stole glances at each other from afar. They hugged each other and whispered softly like lovers. Hey, aren't they afraid of being too conspicuous? I've noticed them before, but they aren't. They really aren't. Wu Tong had a sweet smile on her face. She squinted her eyes into a crescent moon, but she was talking about the two people whose whereabouts were different from ordinary people. Qin Guang smiled mysteriously. This time he was finally showing off. Next, it's time for Instructor Chen's lecture. Little Wu, listen carefully. In Chen's criminal psychology, this is called the contrasting cute disguise technique. They're taking advantage of the contrasting psychology. According to normal people's thinking, if you want to hide in the crowd, of course, the more ordinary you look, the better. According to the thinking of normal agents, you'll pay attention to those who are especially ordinary. However, these two people deliberately pretend to be good friends. It looks very conspicuous, but it makes you lower your guard. So that's how it is. The crescent moon shape in Wu Tong's eyes became more obvious. She looked like she admired him. However, it was obvious that she was pretending. Her eyes were obviously teasing him. Chapter 747. Wu Tong said. But they are hugging each other. Qin Guang nodded. These two are really going all out. The more I look at them, the more suspicious they are. But they are biting each other. I'm regretting eating the lunchbox just now. Oh my god, my eyes are burning. Ouch. They're leaving. Qin Guang said firmly. Follow them and arrange for the people outside to take action. These two must be up to something. Boss, these two have entered the hotel. Fine. Let's barge in and see what they are doing. I have a leader who thinks they are suspicious. After waiting for a few minutes, a hysterical roar came from the walkie-talkie. What is the meaning of this? What's wrong with two men dating? Is it against the law? I want to lodge a complaint. Lodge a complaint against your leader. Lodge a complaint. Boss, what should we do? Did you get the wrong person? Wu Tong coughed. You guys handle this. I'm still busy. Let's talk another day. Another day. Bye. Turning off the earpiece, Wu Tong looked at Qin Guang in silence. Is this the camouflage technique? I think they are quite cute. Instructor Qin. Nice to meet you, Teacher Wu. Contrasting cuteness. Wu Tong was still hugging Qin Guang, but her hand was pinching his waist. All right. Go back to the back of the stage. Don't stay here and cause trouble. Bye. Trust me one more time. This is the last time. I'm not joking. I'm serious. So you were not serious just now? I was serious just now, but I overexerted myself. This time let's get closer and listen more before taking action. Fine. I will trust you one more time. But don't joke around. Luckily we were in the hotel, or else we would have alerted them. I know. I am more nervous than you. Qin Guang himself was also in a mess. There were only about 20 people in the group and they didn't have any faith points. Their accuracy should be especially high. Who would have thought that these good gay friends wouldn't play by the rules? Seriously, if you guys are gay, just stay at home. Why do you have to come out and interfere with my line of sight? Well, in a sense, this did not seem to be bad news. If those two were still his fans, then that would be really scary. Qin Guang and Wu Tong began to walk around the square again. This time they targeted 3 men who were gathered together in a queue. As soon as the 2 of them got closer, they immediately noticed something unusual. The 3 of them looked like university students, but they were clearly much stronger than the average university student. It was just that the clothes they wore were loose, which hid their overly strong bodies. At this moment, the 3 of them were chatting and laughing, pointing at the beauties in the crowd from time to time. It was undeniable that their acting was really good. They even fooled Wu Tong, the other secret agents, and even the inner force martial artists. Wu Tong had paid attention to the three of them for a short while, but from afar she could tell that they were talking very loudly and did not deliberately avoid the people around them. That was why Wu Tong eliminated the three of them from the list of suspicious targets. However, their acting skills could not fool the eyes of the world-class actor Qin Guang. Although their eyes were looking at the beautiful girls, there was no lust in the depths of their eyes. Instead, there was a sense of coldness. As for Wu Tong, what really made her wary was that after she quietly got closer, she suddenly realized that she could not understand what the three of them were talking about. Indeed, they were indeed talking loudly. Even though she was 4 to 5 meters away from the crowd, she could still clearly hear every word they said. However, Wu Tong could not understand a single word. I was tricked. I should have gotten a little closer just now. No, if Qin Guang had not pointed out the three of them first and made Wu Tong think that there was something wrong with them, even if she really could not understand what they were talking about, she would at most think that they were some ethnic minority or speaking some dialect, because their pronunciation was at least 70 to 80% similar to Chinese. China was a vast land with abundant resources. There were hundreds and thousands of dialects in different places, so it was normal for the pronunciation to be very different. For example, when people from Beijing went to Denghai, they would definitely be confused. When people from Dechuan went to Jiangnan, they would also not understand a single word when listening to Wu Nong's soft language. For example, in Sun Xiaoxuan's hometown Wumian City, the people there called the restaurant Fadi in their dialect. In the ears of people from Dechuan, it was Fadi. Who would have thought that? There's something wrong with these three people. Wu Tong did not dare to frown. She also showed off her acting skills and smiled at Qin Guang's ear in puzzlement. At the same time, she turned on the walkie-talkie again and emphasized the situation of the three people to the other colleagues. However, a strange smile appeared on Qin Guang's face. You're wrong. If they're not guilty, then there's something wrong with them. 100%. But don't be in a hurry to act. Let me listen to them. You can understand them? Wu Tong looked at Qin Guang in disbelief. Qin Guang's eyes, hidden behind the mask, were full of smiles. Of course, I can only say that this is too interesting. This world's breaker is not simple. What language are they using? The pronunciation is similar to Chinese, but the meaning is completely different. It's not a Latin language either. I know English and have interacted with other languages, but this is an indigenous language of Africa. It belongs to the Tubermuru tribe. The Tubermuru tribe that originally used this language have probably disappeared in the chaos of war. In the past, I thought that there were less than 100 people in the world who could speak Tubermuru. Today I've learned something new. Qin Guang said calmly. It was undeniable that the World's Breaker was an internationally renowned assassin organization that was different from the rest. The leader of the World's Breaker had great foresight. He actually thought of learning this dying Tubermuru language and taught it to his core members. Regardless of whether it was a live communication or a phone call, they could use this special language. Even if they were being monitored or bugged, they wouldn't have to worry about information leaking because no one would be able to understand it. It was even possible that the Tubermuru tribe that taught this language to the World's Breaker had all died under the butcher knife of the World's Breaker. In this world, other than the members of the World's Breaker, no one else would be able to master Tubermuru language. This was a unique communication method that was almost impossible to crack. It was even more insane than encryption and more convenient to communicate with. Although Tubermuru was an indigenous language, it had its own system. It had a strict structure and its pronunciation was similar to Chinese. Every word had a different pronunciation and meaning. It was also very easy to create new words. The World's Breaker's plan was perfect. However, they were unfortunate enough to meet Qin Guang. Coincidentally, Tubermuru language was within the 4,978 languages that Qin Guang knew. For the sake of a flawless disguise, they purposely spoke loudly. However, all of their words fell into Qin Guang's ears. This feeling was like a beautiful woman wearing thick clothes walking on the street, but everyone on the street was wearing see-through glasses, and everyone could see that her straight chest was actually padded with 3 layers of silicone pads. As sad as that. Wu Tong's eyes widened as she looked at Qin Guang in disbelief. How did you know? Tubermuru? What's that? Qin Guang didn't have time to answer her. Instead, he shushed her and said softly, there are a total of 8 of them. None of them are armed. Currently none of them have entered the venue. Then he didn't care whether Wu Tong believed him or not. He continued to listen. F***CK, quickly get someone to change the seats in the gallery. The 7th seat in the 3rd row, the 5th seat in the 7th row, VIP area 107. Qin Guang's expression changed slightly as he listened. He quickly pointed out 8 seats. It turned out that the world's breaker had been eyeing the National Gallery of Art since the beginning of the planning for his piano concert. As early as 5 days ago they had already made their move. Through their planted spies, they first secretly damaged a portion of the chairs in the venue. Therefore, before she even realized it, she had already subconsciously treated Qin Guang as her master. Wait a minute. Let me see if I can hear anything out of the ordinary. In less than 5 minutes, Wu Tong received another message from her earpiece, saying that the Shattered had contacted the Security Bureau again, requesting for a negotiation and information on Xuelin. Unlike the last time, the Shattered's threat this time was simpler and more straightforward. This was what they said. We heard that you Chinese like the number 8, so we've prepared 8 surprises for you. You don't have much time left. Otherwise, to borrow an ancient Chinese saying, we'll congratulate you on making a fortune. The corner of Wu Tong's mouth curled up slightly. If it was before, she would have been so anxious that her eyebrows would have been on fire when she heard such news. But now she had just defused 8 bombs, and the other 8 gangsters were already under strict surveillance. Everything was under control, and the threat of the world shatter made her want to laugh. After listening to Wu Tong, Qin Guang could not help but want to cover his mouth and laugh. Alright, I don't even need to cover my mouth with a mask. By the way, what kind of place is Mount Baral? Why can't I find it on the internet? Qin Guang lowered his head and played with his phone. Wu Tong thought for a long time. I only know of a city in the southwest that used the name Baral. Could it be that place? Forget it, we'll look into it later. Let the internal force experts from the general headquarters do it, lest they resist. By the way, I have a request. What is it? Leave no one alive. Why? Believe me, you won't get anything out of them. I'm even sure that if you give them the slightest chance, they'll spread the news that they've inexplicably been exposed. That way they might discover the fact that the Tubamuru language has been exposed. Therefore, instead of pursuing more unrealistic information, it's better to let them die a quick death. That way we can make them fall into the same pit again. Wu Tong looked at him again. You've become more decisive than before. Qin Guang curled his lips. That depends on who I'm dealing with, don't you think? I don't have the slightest bit of mercy for the world breaker. That's true. Let's do it. The two separated. With an internal force expert holding the line, it was impossible for anything to go wrong against 8 unarmed members of the world breaker. Therefore, Qin Guang didn't need to pay attention to them anymore. The poor members of the world breaker didn't know that not only did they fail to get any information about Xuelin, but they also exposed the name of Mount Baral. Although inner force martial artists were not very competent as secret agents, they were good at scheming. It was not difficult for them to shatter a person's heart and lungs with a seemingly casual slap on the back. 10 minutes later, the 8 experts from the shattered world, including 3 core members, silently fell to the ground. The crowd was too noisy. Falling down without any warning would only make people think that they had fainted because of the crowd. The organizers reacted too quickly. In less than 30 seconds after these people collapsed, many medical staff wearing white coats rushed out and carried them away. No one knew that the moment the 8 people collapsed, their hearts had stopped beating. After a short commotion, everything returned to silence. The chairs in the art gallery had been secretly changed. This little commotion was like a stone thrown into a lake. It only caused a few ripples before it quickly disappeared without a trace. Chapter 748. There was a saying that went, the reason you can't see the darkness is because someone is standing in front of the darkness and blocking it behind them. Wu Tong led more than 30% of Beijing's elite police officers and more than a quarter of the top secret agents. Coupled with Qin Guang's godly performance, they managed to kill the threat of the world breaker in the cradle. That was why this seemingly peaceful piano performance could continue. Everything seemed to be playing down, but in fact, if there was even the slightest mistake, all danger could not be strangled in the cradle before the performance officially began. If the 8 bombs continued to be hidden like this, the consequences would be unimaginable. After the incident, Wu Tong broke out in cold sweat. She had underestimated the World Breaker's madness. According to past experience, although the World Breaker was trying to cause a ruckus in Beijing, they wouldn't simply kidnap civilians to create a terrorist attack. In China, there was a saying that went, "Those who offend China will be punished no matter how far they are." The World Breaker should know that if they really dared to blow up the building today, they would face the craziest revenge from the entire country. But this time they seemed to be really anxious. Even so, they were still somewhat fearful. Just like how they took the initiative to communicate with Qin Guang previously, it showed that they were still focused on negotiation, and their arrangements could be considered flawless. However, they never expected that Qin Guang would actually know the Tubur-Muru language, which caused them to fail miserably. Fortunately, they managed to escape unscathed today. Qin Guang sat at the back of the stage with his fists clenched tightly. He was thinking the same thing as Wu Tong. Because of Wu Tong's optimistic estimation, he had let his guard down. He didn't expect the other party to make such a big deal out of it. According to the report from the Security Bureau, if the 8 bombs were to explode at the same time, the National Art Gallery might not be razed to the ground, but it would definitely collapse. At that time, the number of casualties would definitely be in the thousands. He didn't dare to imagine that scene. The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. Mount Boral, right? I'll remember it. This time he really suffered an unexpected disaster. This matter clearly had nothing to do with him. Moreover, it was the World Breaker who had been looking for trouble, and he didn't even take revenge. But these bastards actually dared to put bombs in the crowd. He could still remain calm in front of Wu Tong, but when he requested for the 8 members of the World Breaker to be killed, he had already lost control of his emotions. Otherwise, he wouldn't have interfered with Wu Tong's decision under normal circumstances. After all, it was Wu Tong's duty as the commander. However, Wu Tong didn't know that he was still joking around and thought that he was really as calm as he pretended to be. He had thought of telling Xuelin about Mount Baylor, since there must be a way to contact that fellow. But in the end, Qin Guang decided to hide this matter in his heart. Furthermore, he even informed Wu Tong before he left. Unless the higher-ups decided to send a large force, he shouldn't send Xuelin there to die. No one knew what Qin Guang was thinking at this moment. However, it definitely wasn't a good thing for the shattered world. The 5 masters were still looking forward to getting Nightingale. Nobody knew what Qin Guang was thinking. Nobody thought that Qin Guang was bragging. Since he could organize this concert on such a large scale and put $1.2 million in front of them without batting an eyelid, it meant that he could really buy Nightingale. Raven Horde began to tap his fingers agilely on the table. Although he was already 60 years old, years of perseverance in playing and good self-care had allowed him to maintain abundant physical strength and excellent mental state. He began to get serious. The other 4 were no longer his juniors. At this moment, in order to get Nightingale, he had already regarded the other 4 as his competitors. In terms of fame, perhaps he would be more famous, but who could guarantee that Perez, Christina, and the other 2 wouldn't perform exceptionally well on the spot and play the most perfect music? Fortunately, the songs I chose were all my specialties. Moreover, they all had a certain level of technical difficulty. If I perform normally, I have a good chance of winning today. Compared to the other 4, Raven Horde had the most money. Although he also despised Qin Guang, US dollars were worthy of respect. Therefore, he chose Croatian Rhapsody and Pathetique. It was enough to show his respect and show off his skills. Perez sat on the other side of the sofa. He was resting with his eyes closed. His face was expressionless. His slender fingers were slowly rubbing together. He was trying hard to suppress his desire to laugh. He felt that he was very wise. Recently, he had been practicing Maxim's adaptation of Flight of the Bumblebee, so he decided to choose this song. As for the other song, he chose the relatively relaxing Nocturne in E-flat major, by Chopin. These 2 songs, one fast and one slow, were a perfect match. Flight of the Bumblebee highlighted his skills, while Nocturne could be used to enhance his artistic taste. He was going to win. Christina and the other 2 looked a little bitter. It was obvious that everyone wanted Nightingale. However, the 3 of them had chosen their songs very casually. It was not a problem to use it as a commercial performance. However, now that the commercial performance had been upgraded to a competition for Nightingale, they had already lost half of their songs. It was a huge loss. Be it Raven Horde or Perez, they were not easy to deal with. At this moment, Fong Tianyu, who had received Qin Guang's permission, knocked on the door gently. Come in. Christina glanced at the other four before replying. Fong Tianyu pushed the door open and entered, only to find that the atmosphere between the 5 people in the room was not quite right. He himself was also at a loss. Well, masters, Mr. Qin asked me to inform you that although the tickets have already printed out the songs that you have chosen, you can change your songs at the last minute if you want to. You can try to choose the songs that you are best at. He will handle the audience's opinions. Oh, that works. Perez was the first to lose his cool. Raven Horde's expression also changed. He was a little unhappy. What does Mr. Qin mean? Actually, I don't really understand. He just asked me to inform everyone. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. According to the order of the reservation, Ms. Christina will be the first to go on stage. Please be prepared. Oh, right, we have actually prepared a piano practice room in the room next door. Miss Christina, if you want to change your song, you can practice there first. Is there only one piano room? The other 2 who had problems with the song selection hurriedly stood up. Fong Tianyu's mouth twitched. No, there are 5 piano rooms. All right, let's go practice too. Hey, that's not very good, Perez said with his mouth pursed. Hee, Mr. Perez, it's rare for the 5 of us to gather together. It's good to have a fair competition. Even if I lose, I want to lose willingly. We are pursuing a higher art. The more we do this, the more perfect our performance will be. Christina was the first to run out as fast as she could because she was a woman. She couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. Everyone knew that she was the world's best performer of Will-o'-the-Wisp. As long as she could perform Will-o'-the-Wisp perfectly on stage, she would be unrivaled in terms of show-off skills. It didn't matter even if she made a slight mistake due to hasty preparation, because a complete performance of Will-o'-the-Wisp was already a great achievement. Although the video of Qin Guang playing the top 10 most difficult songs that he had posted on the internet had caused quite a stir, and Christina herself had seen it before. She had even asked her students to analyze the audio track of Qin Guang's video, but she didn't take it seriously. Judging from her professional perspective, Qin Guang's performance was too accurate. It didn't seem like it was played by a human at all. It was clearly a sound that was synthesized by the computer after the score was input into the computer. This was because the 10 most difficult songs performed by human fingers could not be as precise as what he had done in the video. Therefore, Christina had reason to believe that the Huaxia internet celebrity, Right Qin, was faking the bullet. Now that she had seen him in person, not only did her belief not waver, but it became even firmer. He was so vain that he was willing to spend $1.2 million just to get a chance to perform on the same stage as the 5 of them. It was all for the sake of fame. How could it be impossible for such a person to fake the bullet? The other 4 people's situation was similar to Christina's. No one really believed that Qin Guang had the ability he had shown in the video. It was too incredible and unreal. It was fine to deceive beginners who had just learned piano to a certain level, or young people who were easily swayed, but to deceive us, sorry, you're not qualified. After the 3 of them left, Perez and Lavin Holland couldn't sit still. Didn't anyone think that Right Qin was actually humiliating us by bringing up this matter? Listening to what Manager Fong said, it seems like he has the confidence to beat us no matter what song we play. Perez's face was gloomy. He suddenly experienced a feeling of being looked down upon, which made him very angry. Lavin Holland nodded. How could we not understand? But it doesn't matter. He's just a young man who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He really thinks that being able to make a sound means that he has some achievements. He's not insulting us but the piano. Hey Perez, I've got to go practice my song. I really don't know what's going on, but I actually feel like I'm 30 years younger and my blood is boiling. Perez smiled. Me too, Mr. Horde. Lavin Holland grinned. So, let's get serious and have a good competition. At this time in the art gallery outside, although the audience was slow to enter due to the cumbersome security procedures, as the time approached, the Huaxia National Art Gallery, which could accommodate 5,000 people, was gradually filled with people. Everyone's seat was according to their number, and not many people cared about the 8 empty seats. In such a large gallery, the group of bald heads in the ordinary area was still so conspicuous. Qin Guang's most loyal die-hard fan, The bald president was still sitting in the middle of the crowd, gnashing his teeth fiercely. Grandpa, just lose for once. The music guy that Qin Guang had met once on the plane had bought a VIP ticket in the innermost area. At this time he was very conflicted. Rationally, he hoped to see Qin Guang embarrass himself on stage. After all, Qin Guang had verbally humiliated his idol Clayderman. He had also learned more about Qin Guang's filth from his teacher. But emotionally he had to tell himself that he could not think like that. He's your savior, the unparalleled hero who saved 300 lives in a desperate situation. You have to maintain enough respect for him or else you'll be ungrateful. Mr. Clayderman. I'm in a dilemma. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.